Aide l'appel, s'il vous plaît, Madame le greffier.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélia. Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Brelard.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Présent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Grouville.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Southern.
Présent.
Madame le Député Labbé. Monsieur le Député Tadier. Monsieur le Député Luce. Madame le Député Dublé.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le Député Lehegara. Monsieur le Député Ayer. Monsieur le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Alves. Madame le Député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Ghost.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le Député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Mézec.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Joseph. Monsieur le Député Balash.
Présent.
Monsieur le Député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le Député Porret. Monsieur le Député War. Madame le Député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le Député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Renouf.
Présent.
Madame le Député Curtis.
Présente.
Madame le Député Faltham.
Présente.
Madame le Député Binet.
Présente.
Madame le Député Jehan. Madame le Député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le Député Howell.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Binet. Monsieur le Député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le Député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le Député Curtis. Madame le Député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le Député Wilson.
Présente.
Madame le Député Stevenson. Monsieur le Député Andrews.
Madame le greffier.
Prions Dieu, notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi les gouvernements et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom, nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit que toute leur délibération est en compagnie de ta bénédiction, réussisse au bien et au soulagement du peuple qui te plut de commettre le soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par le mérite de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui est aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal. Car à toi le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le Connétable de Saint-Hélia.
So the Constable of St Helier is returning to the island. He's been away on a trip which was planned before we decided to sit on Monday afternoon, and he hopes to be with us, travel permitting, later.
Do you want to mark excusez?
Excusez, please.
Members content to mark Connétable. Excusez. Excusez.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent est malade.
Vous jurez que Madame le Connétable de Saint-Laurent est tellement indisposée qu'elle ne peut pas assister aux états sans exposer sa santé. Madame le Député Labbé.
So Deputy Levy is out of the island on state's business.
What's the nature of the state's business?
Ministerial business, sir. She's on a trip on behalf of the department to the United States.
Thank you. State's business.
Monsieur le député Tadier.
Defo.
Monsieur le député Ayer. Madame la députée Alves.
So the Deputy Alves had an engagement commitment made before we knew this sitting was going to happen, so I'd ask for her to be excused.
Content to mark the deputy excusez? Excusez.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Ward.
Defo.
Madame la députée Stevenson.
Excusez.
L'Assemblée est un nom, Monsieur le Président.
Les États sont constitués. Turning to the consolidated order paper for today, there are a number of enactments under B, number of documents presented or laid under C. The following matters have been lodged under D, a number in respect of P51. Proposed Budget Government Plan 2025 to 2028, Third Amendment, Statistics Jersey Funding, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 2025-28, Ninth Amendment, Pillar 2 allocations, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 11th Amendment, Vehicle Emissions Duty, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 18th Amendment, Play Strategy, lodged on the 19th of November by Deputy Doublé. Proposed Budget Government Plan 18th Amendment, Second Amendment, Play Strategy, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 23rd Amendment, St Heliers Neighbourhood Improvement Area Programmes, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 24th Amendment, lodged on the 18th of November by Deputy Jehan. Proposed Budget Government Plan 24th Amendment, Second Amendment, Agricultural Loan Restriction, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. Proposed Budget Government Plan 25th Amendment, Stamp Duty Exemption, lodged on the 19th of November by Deputy Joseph. Proposed Budget Government Plan 28th Amendment, Removal of Stamp Duty Surcharge on Second Homes, lodged on the 19th of November by the Council of Ministers. And then in relation to P72, Draft Finance 2005 Budget, Jersey Law, Amendment lodged on the 19th of November by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Draft Finance 2025 Budget, Jersey Law, Third Amendment, lodged on the 19th of November by the Minister for Treasury and Resources. P81, Jersey Overseas Aid, Appointment of Non-States Commissioner, lodged on the 14th of November by the Minister for International Development. P82, Support Scheme for Individuals Qualifying to Represent Jersey in Off-Island Competitions, lodged on the 19th of November by Deputy Kovac. P83, Elected Speaker and Deputy Speaker of the States Assembly, Selection and Appointment, lodged on the 19th of November by the Connétable of St John. P84, Comptroller and Auditor General Board of Governance, appointment of Chair and Independent Member, lodged on the 21st of November by the Council of Ministers. And P85, provision of recycling sites in St Brelade, lodged on the 25th of November by Deputy Tadier. In accordance with Standing Order 34.1, the proposers of the following propositions lodged au greffe have informed the greffier that they are to be withdrawn. P51, Amendment 13, Proposed Budget Government Plan AMPO duty fuel lodged on the 11th of November by Deputy Renouf, and P51, 15th Amendment, proposed budget government plan, Highlands College repairs, lodged on the 18th of November by the Children, Education and Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel. Deputy Kovacs.
Can I raise the deaf on Deputy Tadier, please?
Members content to raise the deaf on Deputy Taylor? The deaf vote
And,
is raised.
Like the deaf on Deputy Ward, please.
Members content to raise the deaf on Deputy Ward? The deaf vote is raised. There are no matters under F or G or H. There have been a number of written questions in respect of which answers have been supplied. We now come to oral questions with notice. I invite Deputy Renouf to put the first question to the Chief Minister. Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister explain what involvement, if any, he has had in the decision-making process regarding the appointment of a new ferry operator and state what actions he has taken in relation to this matter since the Assembly last met?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. As I explained previous sitting, as members know, Deputy Morel, as Minister for Economic Development, is responsible politically for this area, so he continues to have my full support. My own role, sir, has related to my capacity as Chief Minister in this instance, providing a guidance and support and ensure to the Minister and ensuring that ministerial business is conducted in the appropriate way. So in relation to what decision-making, what involvement I've had with the decision-making process, so as we haven't actually made any decisions as yet as to who the preferred bidder will be, sir. What we have done, though, is put in place a new process, sir, which is underway, which is aimed at enabling the Council of Ministers or the Minister to do that, sir, by the end of this week, hopefully, sir. And that's what we're focusing on now. Thank you.
Thank you. Supplementary.
So, thank you. The previous process, there was mention made that there was an indicative vote in the Council of Ministers about the options before them. Will he confirm whether the decision, the recommendation from officers that will be put to the Minister, will that be put to a vote in the Council of Ministers? And if so, will this be a formal vote as opposed to an indicative vote? And will it include assistant ministers?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, I anticipate there will be a formal vote of the Council of Ministers, not including assistant ministers, because they do not vote at ministerial meetings, although they are generally always present, which is welcome, sir. So I anticipate there will be a vote, sir, but that will be a vote on the council's view of who the preferred bidder should be, sir. Ultimately, it's up to the minister to make a decision, although I do not anticipate excuse me, him deviating too much, sir, from the view of the Council of Ministers. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. The previous Assembly, the concerns were raised regarding a reaction of the French from the France that come, because we need to develop relationship. Would the Chief Minister advise if he or somebody else at the Council of Ministers had any engagement with the response?
Chief Minister.
I didn't quite hear the last part of the question, but we are in constant...
Well, I think it's important you do. It's any engagement with the French authorities.
What can happen, and was it any conversations regarding ferry operation going forward?
Officials are in constant communication with their French counterparts in ports. Through external relations, we have an ongoing dialogue. All of this, in all of these communications, the potential logistics of the ferry, new ferry operator or existing ferry operator, whatever that works out to be, has been discussed. At a political level, sir, the Minister himself has discussed the matter with French, politically, with French regional politicians, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you. Can Chief Minister advise if he had any engagement with other stakeholders regarding the ferry tender and the contract?
Chief Minister.
Outside of all the stakeholders involved in the process, I don't think I have, no. I think primarily, together with the Minister, I have met with both bidders and relevant officials, but that is... so I'm just trying to think on my feet. I don't think there's anyone outside of those involved with the ferry process and the shareholders. So that does include discussions, like I say, with the shareholders in relation to Brittany Ferries, the executive team of DFDS, and recently today, sir, with the lenders to one of those organisations. But outside of that, no, sir.
Deputy Jehan.
Thank you, sir. Would the Chief Minister say if there were any changes to the procurement criteria and the selection requirements of the tender compared to the joint process, and if so, what were those changes?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. There were changes, sir, because a lot of the work had been done in the previous process, so it was an abridged a version of that. Sir, and I don't have all of the exact detail in front of me, but it was sort of I'm trying to think on my feet, sir. It was predominantly an extension of that. The criteria was largely the same in respect of service level, sir, albeit different fleet configuration might be acceptable given the change in circumstances. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, so were any lessons learned from the failed joint processes informed? Did it inform this process, and if so, what were they?
Chief Minister.
I'm sure I can't identify exact lessons learned currently, sir, because we are moving ahead with the new process rather than going back and scrutinising the former process. And I think it will stand up to scrutiny, so I'm sure that's an exercise we will engage in at the appropriate time, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Joseph.
I wonder if I could ask what the reaction there has been with the outreach with the officials that have met in France. Can the Chief Minister kindly give any indication as to what the reaction has been from those French individuals that have been cited? Is there concern? is there understanding, etc.?
Chief Minister.
I think generally speaking, as officials, French officials at all levels, have there's been a broad understanding, albeit a desire for us to make a decision as quickly as possible. And in all circumstances, we have always led with, from Jersey's point of view, we are going to be acting in Jersey's best interest, sir, but working closely with our partners moving forward.
Supplementary.
So there's no negative. So there's been no negative vibes about the right of the Jersey administration to effectively favour potentially a Danish firm rather than a French firm. There's been no sort of negative connotations. Well, indeed, of course, Condor backed by a British equity fund.
I don't think one would have to be a detective, sir, to probably recognise that the French would prefer to treat with a French company, but from a professional level with officials, sir, on both sides, they've taken a most professional view on the matter, sir. I think I've said in the past there are a number of ramifications, material considerations that we have to consider in the process, including potential for political ramifications based around the decision, sir. And also sort of together with logistical and the potential for any disruption to service, sir, depending on what that decision is.
Deputy Tadier.
So on the 30th of October, Guernsey announced they were choosing Brittany Ferries as the successful bidder the Minister for Economic Development said he was surprised when he heard that announcement. Was the Chief Minister also surprised when he heard that announcement, or can he confirm that he'd actually been given prior notice, along with the Minister, that Guernsey would be making that announcement?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I think the Deputy has his date slightly wrong, and that might have been due to it being misreported. We were informed of Guernsey's decision, I believe, on, I haven't got in front, I think it was either the Thursday or the Friday, I think, whether that was the 17th or 18th, I can't remember, of October, sir, that Guernsey had made their decision, and we're going to announce it that afternoon. After further discussions, they agreed to push that forward to the following week, and we understood they were going to announce it on the Wednesday, potentially, sir, which is what they did. So I wasn't surprised, but I think because the announcement, as I remember, came after a close of play and contained some quite extensive detail as to the rationale, that may have been the cause of the Minister's surprise, but for that, sir, he'll have to answer himself and explain that one. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yeah, insofar as it speaks to the confidence that we, or indeed the Chief Minister, can have in his ministers or the team working on it, is it a problem when the Minister either misspeaks or misremembers and says that he was surprised at something which he actually fully knew about when the Chief Minister had the same knowledge and wasn't surprised? Would he confirm that he has full confidence in the Minister and the officers, both current and the ones managing the previous tender bid, in this whole process?
Chief Minister.
Yes, sir, I do have confidence. I've worked closely with the Minister since I was asked to become more involved around the time of the 17th, when we had the surprise call from Guernsey that they were going to go their own, sir, and I retain that confidence. And on top of that, I can assure members that all ministers, I believe, have provided good support to the Minister in helping him through this rather challenging task, sir. And I'm pleased to report that we are getting close to a solution to provide some confidence and some confidence and some surety around the future of the ferry service.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister confirm if he and the External Relations Minister visited counterparts in Guernsey 2 weeks after the announcement was made by Guernsey government?
No, sir, we didn't.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Can the Chief Minister state what involvement he has had in the development of the new process?
Chief Minister.
Sir, this is being led by the Minister for Economic Development and his team, sir. I've been kept briefed as to the progress of that, sir, and that's the extent of my involvement. Thank you.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. In answering a previous question, the Deputy referred to a list of stakeholders that he had engaged with. Would the Deputy like to outline to the Assembly which organisations those stakeholders are, please?
Chief Minister.
Predominantly, sir, Brittany Ferries, DFDS, the lenders, the lending group to Brittany Ferries. I think that's about it. So, other than that, it's internally officials and other ministers, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. When the indicative vote was taken at the Council of Ministers, could the Chief Minister confirm that he was one of the 2 votes against that indicative vote?
No, sir, there was not, when I say indicative votes, there was a general discussion around the table with ministers expressing their views, and the views evolved as the discussion evolved, sir. And at the end of the discussions, Council of Ministers took a decision to proceed with the new process that we started, so with no dissensions.
Final supplementary, Deputy Renouf.
Yes, I was interested to hear that the Chief Minister has met with the lenders to one of the parties. which suggests he's playing quite a close role. Has the Chief Executive been involved in these discussions as well?
No, sir. The Chief Executive hasn't been involved with the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Minister. The second question, Deputy Ozef will put to the Minister for External Relations. Deputy Ozef.
Thank you, sir. In relation to the decision to reduce government funding for Jersey Finance from 2025, could the Minister explain the rationale behind the decision and state what projects will be impacted as a result, and explain what consideration he gave, if any, to the impact the funding reduction would have on economic growth? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The Council of Ministers has proposed a range of measures to prioritise expenditure. This has included reductions in the budgets of government departments as well as arm's length organisations. In regards to grant reductions, I'm not aware of any analysis being undertaken. I will, however, continue to work with Jersey Finance with regard to the work they undertake in 2025, primarily supporting the use of their reserves. I will also continue to explore other funding opportunities, particularly to ensure that they have sufficient resources to increase their presence in the US, where we are seeing significant levels of growth.
Supplementary?
Sorry, sir, can I just clarify? There has been no analysis that the Minister is aware of about what would happen as a result of this cut. If I've understood, it may not be a cut because they may be using their reserves. Perhaps you just clarify that kindly.
That is in relation to the second part of his question. That is correct. Not only am I supporting them in the use of their reserves, I'd like to find additional monies for them. I can't tell him exactly where that will be at this point, in order to increase their footprint and the work that they do in the US.
Deputy Jehan.
Thank you, sir. And following on from that, Minister, can he ensure that the sustainable finance work that Jersey Finance implements will not be cut as part of the savings or part of this rearranging and using reserves, so they can continue to deliver Jersey for good?
Minister.
So the Deputy is probably aware that my scrutiny panel approached Jersey Finance for comment. I'm not sure whether their letter is in the public domain, but it's extensively quoted from in the report that they have done in regard to the scrutiny review for the budget. And in there, they're going to do, they say, everything in their power to mitigate any impact. And their careful planning and focus will be on the most essential initiatives which will help them to navigate through that period. So that would indicate to me that they don't intend to take the action that she's just requested they don't.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. So can the Minister confirm that they believe their essential actions includes sustainable finance work and the work that has just been published with the support they'll do for the Sustainable Finance Action Plan? Is that essential for Jersey Finance?
Well, I think it's essential for Jersey, and my understanding is that whilst they will do that prioritisation, and whilst I will work with them to give them the level of assurance that they need to use their reserves during 2025 in the way that I've just said in answer to Deputy Ozef, I will also be looking to see if there's other funds that we can do to increase their work in the US. The Sustainable Finance Action Plan is a priority, and it will be in 2025 and 2026. And we know, of course, that in 2026 we will have the money coming in from the Pillar 2 tax take as well, which will enable greater support for the action plan that she's questioned me about.
Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I'm sure that the Minister was aware about my question when I asked in the written question and follow up in the oral the Chief Minister to produce a list of projects that were stopped or delayed as a result of reprioritization of the government. I have received sort of summary late Friday, but it looks like external relation, it's not applicable. Would the Minister advise what are the projects in his portfolio that was stopped or delayed due to prioritization?
Minister, it's rather outside the question that you've been asked, but
Indeed it is, but there are other pieces of work. If the Deputy wishes to read the scrutiny panel review, I was questioned on that extensively when I appeared before them, and it's included in there. There are 2 or 3 other elements of my portfolio that will either be being cut back and the work that we'll be doing will not happen, or they are being reprioritised. I have not seen the answer that the Deputy alludes to on Friday, but I'm more than happy to point her in the direction of the clear answers that I gave to the scrutiny panel on the matter.
Supplementary?
Yes, absolutely. It was actually the answer from the Chief Minister putting all responses to the scrutiny together, and somehow there was no response from that was put to the scrutiny from the Minister. So, but if I'm going back to the question, for my understanding, maybe for the work stream within the financial services, what are the projects that were stopped or delayed?
Minister.
The projects within financial services are those in regard to the grant to Jersey Finance Limited, which is the subject of Deputy Ozef's question.
Deputy Talia.
So, in response to my scrutiny panel's letter to Jersey Finance asking about how any reduction in their grant, or this reduction in their grant, might affect them, they said, if the reduction in grant is limited to 1 year, we are confident in our team's ability to plan carefully and manage. That is not to say that it will not have some impact, which is impossible to quantify at this stage. Given that statement, does the Minister agree with the panel's recommendation that, in fact, he should closely monitor the financing of grants to Jersey Finance, and that he should accept that next year they should be given a full grant based on this year's grant?
Minister.
So the officers in my department do closely monitor the grants given to Jersey Finance Limited. I've got to say, so I'm not always pleased with scrutiny of budget proposals in my department, but having read their recommendation in this regard, I am more than fully supportive of it. As I remind the chair of the panel, when I appeared before him, it was a compromise. I didn't actually support the cut to this budget in the first place. The proposed cut initially was rather than $1 million across the ALOs, it was 3 million. So the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development and I made our case. We had this cut reduced, but I will do everything in my power, as I've already said in answer to the original questions. Firstly, to allow Jersey Finance to use their budget. Secondly, to cease them to seek to find additional money so that they can do that important work which will drive economic growth, which is critical. And thirdly, to make sure that when we come to allocate the competitive money from the Pillar 2 income, that their budget is restored.
Supplementary?
No, sir.
Deputy Owens, final supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful for the Minister's answer, and I wonder whether this can, he would conclude by answering absolutely clearly, for the avoidance of any doubt, that the challenges that the government is facing, we as an Assembly are facing, in having challenging times finding money for frontline services, the health service, that rather than a discussion, does he agree with me that rather than having a constant discussion about cutting the cake, we must actually, and he must lead the charge in delivering a message of growth and an appetite and a need for growth? There is a correlation between the money that this Assembly votes for Jersey Finance and the economic recovery and the money that this Assembly has. But it's a worrying message when you are effectively cutting the money for the island's most important economic provider? Will he give a storming vote of confidence to the industry that otherwise might not understand?
Minister.
So I'm not sure I need to, because the deputy has just done so, and I congratulate
Not a
him
minister.
on doing so. Our economy, like many economies around Western Europe, are facing a challenge of growing public services and an increasing cost of a health provision. If we look at the division of our current budget, we see that growing number going into health services. It is not affordable in the longer term unless we grow the economy. And whether members like it or not, whether members of the public like it or not, the only game in town to grow our economy in such a way that means we don't need to raise taxes is through financial services. And that is why I made the case together with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development that these cuts, whilst balancing the budget in 2025, might seem sensible and reasonable. They were absolutely cutting off our nose to spite our face. They were absolutely short term, and he and I will be completely aligned in making sure that the economic sectors of Jersey have growth and they have the promotional money that they need so that we can see a growing economy and so that we in this place don't have to make difficult decisions about increasing taxes, because that is not what the public wants, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. The third question, Deputy Talia will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy Talia.
Thank you, sir. I'll bring us back down to earth. Will the Minister state if the safety record of the tendering companies was a factor in the previous decision-making process for passengers and freight ferry services, and whether it will be a consideration in the current tender process, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. And I do thank the Deputy for his question. I think it's an important one. Sir, as part of the tender process, the previous tender process, all bidders were required, as part of that invitation to tender, to submit a health and safety plan, which was evaluated as part of the technical evaluation criteria. Tenderers were asked to demonstrate an effective safety policy and the necessary organisation to implement it. The invitation to tender document also set out that any successful tenderers must comply in all respects with the provisions of the Health and Safety at Work Jersey Law 1989 and other relevant health and safety legislation. Now, sir, the procurement exercise was focused on the information provided in the tenders, and so did not take into account, into consideration, any past incidents the bidding parties may have been involved in. But I do personally want to add, sir, from my perspective, that I've been involved in the recovery operations around the loss of the Lecum and the 3 lives on board, sir. And so from my perspective, whilst I fully accept that the tender process does not take that into account, their loss, the loss of those 3 lives, lives with me and in my thoughts at all times, not just within this process, but in all matters around maritime matters, sir, and guides me in terms of the health and safety implications of all the decisions we make with regard to administering the seas.
Supplementary.
Thanks, sir. I learnt today from a written answer I got to a written question that Jersey does not have corporate manslaughter on its statute book. So where maybe we could have expected in other places like England and Wales for a company to be held to account for certain criminal offences which might result in manslaughter, in Jersey that isn't the case. And we have currently a live case where 2 individuals who work for Condor are being prosecuted for manslaughter, which might otherwise, as I said, be a corporate manslaughter charge if that was within our statutes or within the Jersey law framework. Given that is the case, can the Minister clarify why it isn't a criteria to look at the current safety record and any prosecutions that might be hanging over either company when deciding whether or not to trust them with the safety and lives of visitors coming to and from Jersey?
Thank you, sir. I think the Deputy raises some interesting questions around corporate manslaughter, not ones I'm able to answer directly in that respect, but I think the Deputy is right to raise them. I cannot say why that those records aren't taken into account, except from the perspective of, in order to ensure a fair tender process, the process itself looks at the bids and looks at those tender documents that are recorded. I think it is then, because ultimately the awarding stage of a process ultimately involves political discussion. I think that's where, if those matters are to be raised, that's where they become raised. But the process itself could only look forward in that respect. So I believe that's most likely why those records were not involved.
Thank you, Minister. Question 4, Deputy Coles will put to the Minister for Children and Families. Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister explain what consideration, if any, has been given to raising the age of criminal responsibility in Jersey, the age below which a child cannot be tried as a criminal, from the age of 10 to 14 to match the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child's recommendation, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Consideration has been given to the minimum age of criminal responsibility and will be referenced within the Youth Justice Strategy due to be published in early 2025. Changes to the age of criminal responsibility are more complex than simply changing the age in a law. Guidance from the Attorney General provides safeguards against the criminalisation of children. But we cannot safely raise the age of responsibility without answering the fundamental question of how we deal with children under the age of 14 who appear to have committed a criminal offence. The Youth Justice Strategy will be coordinated under the Building a Safer Community framework, and a Youth Justice Partnership is being convened in the coming months to work through the proposed key outcomes and action points from the strategy. The proposed group membership consists of Justice and BAS Coordinator, Deputy Chief Officer of the States of Jersey Police, and representatives from Criminal Justice and Community within SOJP, representative from the Law Officers Department, Director of Children's Service, Head of Youth Service, Head of the Probation Service, Chef de Police from the Honorary Police, representative from the courts and from Health and the Children's Commissioner's Office. And other members will be co-opted as required. I trust that this answers the point of whether it will be considered. At this point, it's difficult to say when we will be able to comment further and deliver on that specific item. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Can the Minister confirm whether he believes that exposure to the criminal justice system is, for children under the age of 14 is of a benefit or a hindrance in their development?
Minister.
I believe we would consider that a hindrance in their development. The current guidelines, I think anyone under the age of 15, it's very unlikely. The presumption is that they won't be charged. And I think that everything we're doing under the Youth Justice Strategy is actually starting with early intervention to prevent children from coming into contact with the criminal justice system. Thank you.
Deputy Chair.
Thank you, sir. Does the Minister know how many children have been held criminally responsible for their actions between the age of 10 and 14 in the last 3 years, and what has been the consequence?
Actually, I don't have that information to hand, but I'm quite happy to provide that to the Deputy, and I shall make arrangements for that information to be provided.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I'm quite surprised. Does that mean, I'm assuming it's quite a lot of children, or not that many, if the Minister for Children and Families is unable to understand how many children he has under his care in in this regard. But has the Minister, and I suppose it's going on from Deputy Cole's question about the consequences of youngsters being held criminally responsible. So has the Minister reviewed, or will the Minister agree to a review on the impact of children being held criminally responsible at such a young age, and how will the Youth Justice Strategy respond to this? And again, extremely disappointed that in a written question, the Youth Justice Strategy was going to be published in April, and why has it taken so long to now only be just published in 2025?
Right, thank you, sir. I mean, I have only actually taken responsible for the Youth Justice Strategy in the last 10 days, so I don't think I can be responsible for its delay between April and next year. In fact, I think the fact that I have been given responsibility is to actually bring the Youth Justice Strategy to the fore and ensure that it is delivered within this government. I'm happy to, I think that I've already answered the question as to whether we're considering moving the age of criminal responsibility from 10 to 14. We certainly are considering that within the Youth Justice Strategy, and I don't think there's anything else that I can add to that. Thank you.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. For the avoidance of doubt, can the Minister state whether he is in favour of raising the age of criminal responsibility to 14?
Minister.
I think it's something that we definitely have to consider. As I've said, it's not a simple, particularly simple matter. It needs a great deal of thought before we go along those lines. I notice in Scotland the age of criminal responsibility is actually 12, which is halfway between 10 and 14. They have a somewhat different legal procedures, but as I say, it needs a great deal of thought. And at this point, I would want to see all the evidence before me before making any decision. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. Can the Minister state how long he thinks it will take him to get his head around this particular difficult question?
Minister.
Well, that is going to depend on the delivery from the, from the BAST network. I would certainly, and where the age of criminal responsibility that rests within there. There are a number of important deliverables here. And I would say that my first priority is actually looking at early intervention. And for children to avoid entering the criminal justice system in the first instance. I don't think at this stage I can say when that will be delivered. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. I would like to understand from the Minister what's happened between January and February that this government took the roles, and 10 days ago that the Youth Justice found a home. What's happened around, why this Youth Justice strategy hasn't progressed over the last 10 months?
Minister.
Right, thank you. I wouldn't say it hasn't progressed. However, as I say, my own responsibility for it started 10 days ago. As to what has happened prior to that, I would need to look into that. Certainly, the idea of making an assistant minister responsible for that area is to ensure that it progresses faster than it has done. I wouldn't want to comment on why it hasn't progressed and why there wasn't delivery in April this year without having had the opportunity to review everything. So I can't answer that at present.
Thank you, Minister, for his response. Follow up from his previous answer when he would like to put an emphasis on the prevention at the first place to avoid 10 to 14 entering into the criminal circus. Would the Minister let us know what are specific actions or what are specific steps he's planning to do in the area of the prevention?
Minister.
Yes, I think prevention starts perhaps at an age even earlier than 10. And some of the things we're looking at the moment in the first instance is for the youth service, in fact, to undertake some of those early conversations with children who may have drifted into perhaps areas where they might become criminal responsibility and work with the families. Moving on from there, we would, if there continued to be a problem, then possibly we would, the next step would in fact be the honorary police system, which has certainly been very useful in the past. And then there would be diversionary measures, restorative justice, and through those measures we would hope that children who potentially might have gone into the criminal justice system would avoid that altogether. So we are looking at very early intervention in the first instance.
Deputy Tadia.
So whilst the UNCRC doesn't stipulate an age, it does strongly recommend that no child should be criminalised under the age of 12. Given the fact that the Minister's already indicated Scotland has a midway point, shall we say, of 12 years old, is that a model that the Minister might be looking to replicate for Jersey's criminal justice system?
We'll certainly look at that. I'm certainly aware of it. The problem is that the Scottish system is so very different from our own that it's not possible to sort of lift and shift and take it in its entirety. They have differences in their youth justice system that date back to the 1960s, in fact. So, in fact, yes, it is something that we'll look at. They introduced that in 2021. So, in fact, any data that that may be available is fairly new, but it certainly is something that we'll look at. It's a jurisdiction which has changed the age, and I would like to see how that's working and what results they've had.
Does the Minister accept that there isn't really a need for a legal system to be very similar to Jersey's, that this is ultimately a philosophical and political question about when children are old enough to know the difference between right and wrong and about legal right and wrong? So could the Minister again give an indication of what age he thinks generally children should know the difference between right and wrong when it comes to the law?
I did actually answer that, earlier. In fact, I said before making any judgment, I would want to see all the evidence in front of me. I'm very aware that it's not necessarily the legal system. Nevertheless, the Scottish system would need to be is very different from our own. And I don't think I'd say, at this point, I'm not going to say any more because after 10 days, I don't have the evidence in front of me. I would like to see all the evidence from other jurisdictions as well.
Thank you, Minister. Final supplementary, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. As the Minister has confirmed that they will be reviewing the youth justice strategy, will the Minister confirm or commit to reviewing all UNCRC recommendations and producing a report for states members to acknowledge which recommendations they have accepted, partially accepted or rejected, so members can be better informed?
Minister?
I'm not sure that all the UNCRC recommendations are relevant to the youth justice strategy. I would be quite happy to produce a report that those are relevant to the youth justice strategy, and I can ask officers to do that. We certainly will review them, but you know, it's not just the youth justice strategy. I have to say that you know, there are elements of the UNCRC where our other laws, don't seem to take them into account. You know, the right of a child to a home, for instance, I've mentioned this one before. You know, within the planning law, it appears that, you know, a child can live in a house, but if that child is a cared for child, then it requires planning permission, because as soon as that child moves into that house, in effect, it's a child's care home. And we have actually had an instance of that, and I'm still working through that at the moment. So I think there are numerous laws that are not compliant with the UNCRC.
Thank you, Minister. Question 5, Deputy Wilson will put to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he has any intention to merge Digital Jersey with Jersey Business? And if so, whether he foresees any implications for Jersey's aspiration to be a leader in the adoption of advanced technologies and artificial intelligence?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and thank the Deputy for her question. As the Minister for Financial Services discussed earlier, there has been a requirement through the budget to reduce the amount of spend in regard to arm's length organisations, of which £571,000 falls within my portfolio as a whole. That is one element of work that's ongoing. Another element of work that's ongoing is understanding how best the ALOs work. And I have invited both leadership of Digital Jersey and Jersey Business to work with government, myself and government, to understand how best we structure the those two ALOs in order to make sure we provide full business support for businesses in Jersey, relocation services and attracting business to Jersey, and also research and development and innovation, because as members will know, the desire to increase productivity significantly is a part of the Future Economy Programme, a main driver of the Future Economy Programme, and everything that we are told about increasing productivity rests very much on research and development and innovation within the jurisdiction. And so I've invited the leadership of both those organisations to join us, to join me in government in trying to understand how best do we structure, it could be Digital Jersey, Jersey Business and any others, in order to deliver on business support, business relocation and also research and development. It is possible that a joint venture or working together may be a part of it. Equally, it might not be. It might be just a redefinition of the work within those two organisations. But what I have asked is that the leadership work very collaboratively with me and with my officers to help design that best way forward, because I think it is really important that we ensure there isn't duplication between organisations, and we also ensure that we've got a really good opportunity to, I use the word, and it is a little, you know, it's very colloquial, but to turbocharge research and development and innovation in the island. So we're working together on all of that. The outcome, I'm open to all outcomes.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. I'd like to hear, if possible, if the Minister could give us some more detail around the implications of that and what progress is being made in the adoption of the advanced technologies and how they are working together, or is it too early to say at this moment in time?
So it is too early to say at this time, but the implications that the Deputy talks about in her question, advanced technologies, artificial intelligence, and many more. You know, I've talked in this assembly of medical technology sector that is a cluster, is the word I was looking for, sir. Cluster that is developing in the island as well. How can we help all of these areas by providing a suitable environment for research, development, and innovation in the island? With artificial intelligence, it's really interesting because it's potentially about the use, it's potentially about the development, but it's also potentially about the safeguards. And so in that one subject alone, there's lots of different areas that the island could look at. I know recently the UK has come into criticism for focusing very much on the safety element at the expense of the development and innovation element. So it is too early to tell about the actual outcomes, but the outcomes that I'm looking for are a much more robust research and development and innovation environment in the island, as well as business support and a kind of business attractivity, is that a word, element, so that we can bring businesses and investment to the island and support startups and support those businesses that are already here. So it's about trying to create those environments.
Deputy Tadier.
From what the Minister said in his opening answer, it seemed to be that the starting point for the two ALOs in question, Digital Jersey and Jersey Business, is to say we're cutting your budgets by hundreds of £1,000s for next year, and now we'd like to have a conversation with you about how we can work together and how you can improve. Does the Minister think that actually that conversation could have come first to see what the relationship between government and those ALOs should have been, then decide whether a budget cut was in order, or in fact whether they might have need more investment from government before that decision was made?
Minister.
So I had a feeling Deputy may frame it in that way, but actually no. I had already been thinking about the missions of the ALOs long before any budget cuts were around, and but there is a reality that the budget cuts make you focus more keenly on these areas. And so, no, it isn't the case that it's driven by budget cuts, but now that the budget cuts are there, they need to be taken into account, and this piece of work becomes more pertinent as a result. But actually, I had been very much thinking about these things before budget cuts were in the picture.
Yeah, so I frame it that way because that's the way it is. But of course, you know, it can be spun in any particular way I or the Minister would like to spin it, I'm sure. That notwithstanding, the Minister accepts that he wanted to have a conversation with the organisations before these cuts were forced through. And we know that it's not the Minister's choice necessarily to put these cuts. He's being asked to do these from on high. But does it not therefore perhaps prejudice any outcome from those conversations about what working might take place, given the fact that there's already an outcome at the beginning to reduce their budget significantly?
Thank you, sir. I don't think that's the case, and the reason I don't think that's the case is because from a budgeting perspective, that, you know, should the budget be passed as is proposed, I should say, in the coming days, then those budget issues will happen in 2025. With regard to work about how best to structure the ALOs going forward, I don't expect that to be delivered until 2026. So in that sense, they are separate as well.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. So a recent note from the Policy Centre's meeting on how Jersey could become a technologically advanced economy stated that technology is the only industry capable of providing similar financial benefits to the islanders' financial services, yet it has a low priority in the political system compared with, for example, agriculture and tourism. Does he worry that merging Digital Jersey with Jersey Business would send a negative message to a sector that already feels unloved?
Minister.
So, as I have said, the project that we have ongoing is how best to structure the organisations in order to deliver a really good environment for research, development and innovation, and a really good environment for support and for attracting investment and businesses to Jersey. And so in that sense, no, I don't worry about any element because one, the final outcome has not been decided. We're a long way from that. And secondly, the whole point of the project is to work out how best to structure these and any other entities to deliver those improved environments with regard to research, development, business support, and attracting business and investment to the island. So the outcome should be an improvement. That's the idea, that the outcome is an improvement on where we are today.
Yes, so Digital Jersey is a specialist in the area of digital technologies. Jersey Business obviously has a much wider brief. How does he see the potential subsuming of Digital Jersey within a bigger organisation as enhancing the priority given to the digital sector?
Minister.
So I have to go back to my previous answers, which is no outcomes from this piece of work have been decided. And so there isn't a question of one entity subsuming any other entity, so that's not the case as we stand here today. If I come back in the future to say that that's the road we're going down, then that would be different, but at the moment that's not the case.
Joseph.
So the Minister, in answering the questions, isn't ruling out a merger, and I would expect him, if I would be the digital champion, knowing that all the economic forums, such as the World Economic Forum, the Public Policy Research Institute, the Carl Benedict Frey Institute, all say that there are significant opportunities for creating new jobs in the AI evolving world in maintenance and oversight. And the differential, does he not understand that a discussion about a business, Jersey business, which is helping businesses to keep up, versus a digital Jersey which is out there trying to advance us, is two different things, and a merger is kind of confusing members like me.
Minister.
Thanks, sir. I have to refer to my previous comments about the fact that this idea of the merger is not something that is happening at the moment, sir. I have a piece of work that's ongoing with both organisations and government to understand how best to structure organisations in order to make sure we have a superb environment for research, development and innovation, and that artificial intelligence and other technologies would fit very much within that frame, as well as an excellent environment for supporting existing businesses and helping islanders start up businesses, and also a superb environment for attracting business and investment to the island. Those are the three main parts of that piece of work, sir. The outcome is yet to be decided.
Parliamentary.
May I ask the Minister if he's had any discussions with his financial services ministerial colleague about actually what Digital Jersey and Jersey Finance can do together to create and research and develop and imagine and get and secure the jobs of the future that are undoubtedly going to be needed, because AI is going to disrupt and reduce jobs. Has he had any discussions between Jersey Finance and Digital Jersey to give members an indication, the public outside, that we're really keen on growth? Because it's the first conversation I think we're having in this Assembly about economic growth for a while.
Thanks, sir, and I thank the Deputy for a conversation on economic growth. I'm really pleased to have such a conversation. I think it's really important. There were kind of two parts. Have Digital Jersey and Jersey Finance spoken about that? The question is, I don't know. But has the Minister for Financial Services and myself had direct conversations? As of yet, no, we haven't, but I think it could be a good idea, as the Deputy suggested, for us to do so.
Thank you, sir. I think we all know what the purpose of Jersey Business is, but could the Minister explain what he understands as the purpose of Digital Jersey?
Minister.
So from my perspective, Digital Jersey has a wide-ranging remit, but it is very much focused on helping the island to become much more digital, to become digitised. And that means that its remit extends from developing the skills base, digital skills base in the island, through to, and it has played a role in attracting digital business to the island, developing the wider digital ecosystem, as well as we know, also advising government on digital matters as well. It also plays a role in bringing forward new technologies and developing and helping the island become involved in the development of new technologies and innovation. We really see that very well in the Impact Jersey programme, which I'm a big fan of, as well as things like the drone pilots, you know, with agri-techs and other areas as well. So it's got this kind of future-looking element in terms of the research and development. But it's also got this element of trying to help the island develop its own digital capabilities with it from where we are today.
Parliamentary? Deputy Gardner.
My question was asked by previous followed by Deputy Joseph, but follow the same route. Was any consideration given to include also Visit Jersey into the merger?
So I don't know which merger we're talking about, because as I repeatedly said, there isn't a merger happening.
Would the Minister concede that in order to make efficiencies and good management of the laws would Visit Jersey would be included in Jersey Business, Digital Jersey, delivering services which are to find a framework that they will work together and be more efficient.
Minister.
So from the perspective, I had actually thought myself about asking Visit Jersey to be involved in this piece of work. I decided against that, principally because I felt that Visit Jersey's work was so specialised in the area of marketing the island from a visitor economy perspective that its remit didn't fit very comfortably, very easily with the idea of asking Digital Jersey and Jersey Business to work with government to work out how best to structure ourselves for the future. And I must say that it's also really important when I talk about structuring ourselves for the future, I include government in that, because we have government, my department in government has elements like Locate Jersey. We also go out looking for business, trying to attract business to the island. So it's where do we play that role? Should that role be more within either of those two ALOs, or should it sit within government? So government's functions are also part of this piece of work.
Final supplementary, Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir, and thanks to the Minister for those answers. With regard to the final point on innovation and development, can he tell us if we are optimising the benefits of 5G and what benefits the Technology Accelerator Fund is bringing forward?
So 5G is something which is still very much early days. We're not exploiting 5G in Jersey particularly at the moment, sir. And from the business of the Technology Accelerator Programme, we've had the Open Programme has completed, and we saw 6, I believe it's 6, I think I answered this just 2 weeks ago, 6 projects that were funded, and they've met all their KPI gateways to get to access the full amounts of funding that they were meant to. And so the Open Programme appears to have been a success. As far as the CareTech Programme is concerned, that has not been, we're not so far enough down the road yet to know whether it's been a success or not. And the Customer Experience Programme, similar, we're actually at the bid stage. We're waiting for the bids to come in for that. So it's too early to say overall whether Impact Jersey has been a success. What I would say, though, is that the indications from that first Open Programme are looking good.
Thank you, Minister. Question 6, Deputy Gardner, will put to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development.
It's another question about the ferries. Will the Minister provide an update on the process for choosing a new ferry operator by the first week of December, and advise what the current financial implications are for the new ferry operation?
Minister.
Thank you. So, pending the outcome of the current live procurement process, and we are in that process as we speak, it is my intention to announce the preferred bidder. My intention is that I would like to be able to do that by the end of this week. But I have said before that we are working to the end of this week, but because of the very tight timescales, it may bleed into the early parts of next week. The preferred bidder will need to assume the financial obligations required to fulfil their role, including the mobilisation of their fleet and their day-to-day operation, as well as future fleet investment.
Supplementary?
Yes, absolutely. Would the Minister advise if any of the bidders would require ongoing financial support from the public, and if one company contract will bring the higher prices for the Jersey consumers?
Minister.
So, because we are in the live tender process at the moment, and those submissions are actually yet to come in, they're meant to come in within the next 24 to 36 hours. Number one, so none of that information has been provided yet. But I have to say, from my perspective, I want to be able to award to a company that will not require any public funding. That's part of this whole issue, is that I want to make sure and be certain that public funding will not be required.
Thank you, Renouf.
Thank you, sir. It's been commented that in the previous process that DFDS were mandatory fail, because they wanted the right to vary conditions such as price and level of service. during the contract period. Could he comment on why he didn't regard this as a showstopper at the time, and if it is still a live issue in terms of the bids that are coming in?
Minister?
So it's, again, I don't want to go into it. I don't believe all the information has been provided in the way that people may think it has been. But what I will say is that part of the clarification, so two things. One, the contract had yet to be negotiated. So all of that information around those legal technicalities was information that was yet to be negotiated. That was one of my concerns as to why it would be mandatory to fail it, because it was an area that had yet to be negotiated. And part of the clarification questions that we asked as an island, and we asked Guernsey if we could ask, was to understand about the level of negotiation that would be accepted from the FDS's perspective around that. But I think it will make sense to most islanders that if something has yet to be negotiated in full, why would then it become a mandatory fail so early on, before that negotiation had taken place?
Supplementary?
So is he able to say anything about, in terms of the current process, whether a similar mandatory fail process has been gone through and whether that issue is still live?
Minister?
So I don't believe that issue will be live in this process. But as I just said, with regard to Deputy Gardner's question, bids are yet to be in. They're to be in the next 36 hours or so. And until we see those bids, we don't know what they will have in.
Deputy Moore?
Thank you, sir. Does the new bid have a requirement for a service to Guernsey?
Minister?
So the bids, the new tender process has minimum service requirements. It also has minimum vessel requirements. The minimum service requirements are very much about the Jersey UK and Jersey French routes. The tender is about the Jersey-only service, but it's absolutely understood that the winning tenderer, whichever of the parties is a winning tenderer, would likely want to provide services to Guernsey, or not, as the case may be. But so I don't believe the tender does not ask about services to Guernsey, but services to Guernsey would be something that would be added on afterwards by either party.
Perhaps as a supplementary, the Minister might like to outline why he did not think it was a requirement to stipulate a service to Guernsey.
Minister?
So that would be because this is for a Jersey-only service, sir.
Deputy Tallier?
Thank you, sir. So although Christmas is approaching, I think it's not Father Christmas that the Minister needs to help him, but it's probably the fairy godmother, I suspect, as we also approach pantomime season. Sir, given the fact that this new tender process is effectively for a smaller market, does he expect that the new tenders which will be put in will actually factor in the fact that the tenderers are dealing with a smaller market, therefore a less profitable one potentially? And is he expecting that the prices that might be included in that for both freight and passengers is likely to be higher than what it would have been under the old tender process which served both islands?
Minister?
So, as I've said, we have not received the bid submissions yet. We expect them in the next 36 hours, and until those submissions are received, it's not possible to say.
Supplementary?
But in terms of what's being demanded by the Minister and the criteria, could he clarify whether or not he's given more latitude to the companies in terms of what their charges could be? And indeed, could he just clarify whether he's able to publish any of the criteria that is being asked for from the companies, criteria which he wouldn't and they wouldn't consider necessarily to be commercially sensitive, so both we as members and the public could actually look at those criteria and have more knowledge about what's being tendered for?
Minister?
Thank you, sir. I was trying to remember the beginning of that question, sir. Would the Deputy please remind me the beginning of the question? Thank you, sir.
Yes, Deputy.
It was about whether more latitude is being given in terms of pricing, given the fact that it's a smaller market share potentially.
So it's not a question of more latitude being given. The pricing that is submitted is the pricing that we will see submitted. But it has to be said that in our own analysis, because a Jersey-only service requires a smaller fleet, requires therefore less maintenance, etc., we are in the realm of swings and roundabouts, and from our analysis, we do not believe that there is a particular need for a large swings in pricing either way. And so there are benefits to having a Jersey-only service, and we don't believe that pricing should be affected.
But could I ask for an answer on the second part of the question about could the
Yes, there was
minister
a second part about publishing material. Do you want to re-ask the second part?
No, it's okay, sir. I'm going to reserve judgment on that, sir. I'd have to take counsel from legal advisors, etc., as to whether that's possible. I genuinely don't know.
Connétable St Mary.
Thank you, sir. An earlier question referred to the capacity of an alternative service, a sole service from Jersey to the UK to include one to Guernsey. Is he aware as to whether the contract apparently entered into between Guernsey and Condor permits the embarking and disembarking of a rival service into their port?
Thanks, sir. I don't know anything about the contract entered into between Guernsey and Brittany Ferries, but my understanding is that there is not any, in general, there is not any prohibition against vessels from other ports sailing into that port. The issue here is about protecting the routes from the UK and from France rather than between the islands.
Supplementary? Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. There was lots of conversation, Condor, Brittany, or both, either of them. We all know that the Condor was and still in financial difficulties. It was explained in the previous assembly. Does it make any difference if we assign, if the contract would be signed with Brittany and not with Condor regarding the risks for the island if Condor going out of business after?
Thank you, sir. That is a very pertinent question, sir, one that I asked myself, and it's also one of the reasons why it wasn't possible to just follow Guernsey's lead in the previous procurement process. It may make a difference if one party signs rather than the other, but as Minister making the decision, what I would want to understand is in the situation where one entity enters administration and those vessels enter with it, I need to make sure that if there is a different counterparty signing, that they will be able to maintain the services in that situation. That's a very important situation from my perspective. And answers to that question are pertinent.
Thank you, Minister. Question 7, Deputy Scott will put to the Chair of the Privileges and Procedures Committee. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Further to written question 377/2024, will the Chair advise how many members responded to the Code of Conduct review, whether the consultation process is now closed following its extension, and when the committee will be sharing the results of the review?
Chair.
Thank you, sir. A total of 18 people responded to the Code of Conduct consultation, and having only received 10 responses at the end of the first month-long consultation period, PPC then extended the process twice in order to allow members sufficient opportunity to engage with this incredibly important review of the rules which govern our behaviours. This matter was included on we closed the consultation, and the matter was included on PPC's agenda on the 11th of November, but due to competing pressures, we were unable to dedicate sufficient time for there to be a detailed discussion. We agreed instead to meet specifically to consider this matter on Monday the 2nd of December, and it is anticipated that in due course a revised code will be brought forward for endorsement by this Assembly. The responses from the consultation will be included as an appendix to the report, which will accompany any proposed revisions. And although the formal consultation has ended, I would urge any member who still wishes to make a submission that they are still able to. And I will be in answer to the second part of the question, I'll be in a better position to know when we will share the results after you've met to specifically discuss this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. So in the committee's comments on Proposition P75/2023 presented to the Assembly on 10th October 2023, the committee agreed the Code of Conduct should be revised and reported the Commissioner of Standards had at that time already identified a number of issues with the Code. Here's the question. How do members of the Privileges and Procedures Committee justify the consultation being a cause of delay of the bringing of specific changes to the Code that reflect the Commissioner's recommendations, given that the States of Guernsey implemented changes to its Code of Conduct in response to her recommendations in January of this year, importing content that discourages bullying and discrimination?
Chair.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to assure the Deputy and the Assembly that this is something that we take incredibly seriously. And we'd really hoped that something as important as this would be answered by more members. So we actually extended the review deadline, which is why we've been delayed in making our... in releasing the report. So this is why we... sorry, I forgot. Back. So we've agreed to meet on the 2nd of December. We will be in a better place to report on this. And I'm really disappointed that so many members chose not to respond, especially as the deadline was extended twice. And the purpose of the code is to build a common understanding of what behaviours and attitudes we wish to promote. And these are the rules which underpin our working practices and engagement with our electorate, and they protect and enhance the reputation of this Assembly and help to instil public trust in us as parliamentarians. They also ensure accountability and transparency, and I had hoped that by extending the consultation, we would hear from a wider range of members, as this code applies to us all. But less than a third of members chose to respond. I hope that helps the Deputy.
So that doesn't answer my question.
Which part wasn't answered, Deputy?
The question why the committee delayed bringing the specific changes in response to the Commissioner's recommendations rather than wait for the results of the consultation.
Yes, that particular part of the question. Do you want to respond to that, Chair?
Yes, we thought it would be better to actually have the results of the consultation before we fully implemented the changes.
Thank you.
But that doesn't...
No, I think you've had the answer. And Deputy Taddeo.
Would the Chair indicate how this session, this term, compares with other previous terms in terms of the number of complaints that have been received by the Commissioner, including perhaps the number of vexatious complaints that have been put to the Commissioner?
I obviously don't have that to hand, and I've only been chair for this session, but I would say that there have been, it's my opinion that there have been far more vexatious complaints than in previous assemblies.
Supplementary. Final supplementary, Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. How does the committee square the lack of transparency in its process with the current Code of Conduct's principle of conduct of openness? And what lessons and conclusions has the committee reached regarding the lack of engagement by States members with the States Gref?
I don't really agree that there has been a lack of transparency. I can't see that if we go out to consultation and we don't receive the results, and we've been very open about this. We've put out the consultation 3 times, and after this I'll be sending out another link to see whether any States members wish to respond. We've said that we are having a specific meeting to discuss this, and I don't really see that there has been a lack of transparency with this.
Thank you, Chair. Question 8, Deputy Andrews will put to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether the original ferry contract tender process allowed for the possibility of political discretion in selecting an operator, and if it did not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Ultimately, sir, the procurement process and evaluation of the bids were officer-led and were intended to produce a recommendation for award. That recommendation was always going to be lead in itself to political decision-making. And so in that sense, the process always had a political outcome and ultimately political decision-making to be made at the end of it. So.
Supplementary?
Yes, please, sir. Is the Minister not concerned if there was a hold-up with legalities involved in the first process, then the same thing may happen in the second process? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I am the first person to have said that there is lots to be learnt from the first process, sir. And, but we are in a very streamlined process now, sir. I believe both bidders have very willingly signed up to that process. And I know that we are undertaking this in a fair and equitable manner with ultimately a recommendation will be made by an independent assessor. And that recommendation will be made to an officer. If the officer agrees with that recommendation, they will make that recommendation to me, sir. And I will then ask council ministers or seek council ministers' support in that recommendation, sir. So I am not overly concerned at this stage of the concerns that the Deputy has raised.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thank you, sir. Reading between the lines of the question, and I don't know if I'm right to do so, it might seem to me that one matter arising from this could be the fact that when in the previous tender the Minister was presented with a fail on one of the criterias, which he said he didn't fully understand, he didn't understand or necessarily agree with, but he had to go along with it, that could have been an example of where political discretion could be used to say, actually, I disagree that this company has failed on this criterion, and therefore I'm willing to award it. Could the Minister clarify, in fact, whether or not it was possible for him to override any of the advice that he was given on any of the criteria assessments, or whether he simply had to go along with the recommendations being put to him?
Minister.
Thanks, sir. That is a good question. I'm not fully able to answer it. In the sense of maybe it would have been possible, but I think in order to have done so, the advice I was receiving would have perhaps led to higher potential for legal risk in that respect in terms of the last process. But that is given the specific circumstances of that process. In this case, where we are one awarding party, not two awarding parties trying to come to an agreement, so I think we are better positioned to avoid that situation.
Supplementary? Deputy Andrews, final supplementary? Thank you, Minister. Question 9, Deputy Joseph will put to the Minister for Treasury and Resources. Deputy Joseph. You're there. All right. Question, Deputy Joseph, your moment. Question 9.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise how much tax revenue has been received? Sorry, I beg your pardon, sir. I'll start again, sorry. Would the Minister advise how much tax revenue has been received to date from the island's cannabis sector, and whether she has considered an increase to the tax regime for medicinal cannabis providers? If not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So the income tax law was amended from year of assessment 2022 to tax the profits of companies that cultivate, process or distribute cannabis at a rate of 20%. As the filing deadline for 2023 for companies is the 30th of November 2024, the only available information relates to the 2022 year of assessment. Due to high upfront costs, it was acknowledged at the time of introduction that revenue would probably not be forthcoming until year of assessment 2024. In line with this, fewer than 12 companies who identified they received income in 2022 as a licensed cannabis cultivator had a positive tax liability for that year. As a matter of policy, the Comptroller will not specify numbers of taxpayers below 12, nor the amounts payable at this stage, to avoid inadvertent breaches of taxpayer confidentiality. As we have only received 1 year of tax returns from this industry, it would be premature to review the tax regime at this stage. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
So my question was, I thank the Minister for the first part of the question, but it's not very sort of bold and encouraging, I don't think. But my question related to the medicinal cannabis prescribers and I was inviting her to consider whether or not they, now we know that there's been 25,000 medicinal cannabis prescriptions issued, and we know that there's been some fairly large amounts of money paid for them, whether or not the Minister would consider taxing that, because it doesn't seem to be entirely health related.
Sir, I slightly beg to differ. I think the question related to medicinal cannabis providers, which I have interpreted as growers and cultivators, certainly the version I have, it was providers, so the question was not clear. However, as regards the dispensing of cannabis, under Jersey's, several of the pharmacies and dispensers of medicinal cannabis take corporate form, and under Jersey's 010 regime, they are subject to the same 0% income tax rate as other Jersey retailers, provided they are not directly involved in the cultivation or processing of cannabis or are not connected to a company that is. Government and Revenue Jersey are monitoring this nascent industry closely to ensure that tax treatment of its profits and gains remains appropriate. As regards general practitioners are typically organised as partnerships and are taxed at the individual personal income tax assessment level based on their share of profits and gains. So I think if there is any concern about the level of cannabis prescription, that's a matter for regulation by the Health Minister, and the tax system is not designed to regulate any particular industry.
Thank you, Minister. Question 10. Deputy Gardner.
The final supplementary then, sir, because
well, that's because no one else asked any questions. That's the way it works, unfortunately. Question 10, Deputy Gardner will put to the Chief Minister. Deputy Gardner.
Thank you. Will the Chief Minister outline the government's 2025 plans and goals for diversity, equality and inclusion?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. One of the government goals for 2025 is to deliver greater diversity and equity and inclusion for the government, both as an organisation and as a public service. The government has the real benefit of Deputy Alves as our diversity, equity and inclusion political lead, and the Deputy is overseeing several projects, engages with key stakeholders, the community, and ensures interested parties are convened to promote the DEI inclusion agenda. So that includes such projects as including diversity, equity and inclusion in all policy decisions. So policy officers use a policy template that requires diversity, equity and inclusion considerations to be clearly articulated when policy is being developed. So we will enhance gender equity by implementing the Violence Against Women and Girls Task Force recommendations, which is currently being worked on. Enhance greater gender equality by working with the private sector on the gender pay gap reporting. We will redevelop the International Cultural Centre, something the Deputy is and has been close to, sir, through the political lead of Deputy Elves. The International Cultural Centre will be redeveloped during 2025. So those are just some of the projects in motion.
Supplementary?
Absolutely, thank you, and thank you for raising our work streams and actually International Cultural Centre that was promised back in February, and I hope we will see it in 2025. So what is the budget allocation for diversity and inclusion, or several projects that budget was allocated to diversity and inclusion?
I think I need notice of that question, sir, because those projects cross-cut a number of departments. I don't think there was one particular budget for the whole process, but it's part of a number of other budgets. So if the Deputy would like to put that in a written question, I'd be prepared to provide the detailed information.
Yes, Deputy Jehan.
Thank you, sir. In answering my written question on what timeline has the government put in place to deliver a voluntary reporting framework to support businesses on gender pay gap reporting, the response was there wasn't one. Is the Chief Minister concerned that not having a timeline for action means that there will be no action? And could the Chief Minister put a timeline on delivery before the end of term of government?
Chief Minister.
No, so I'm not. I'm not concerned about a timeline, not having a timeline, because the commitment there is to make progress with gender pay gap reporting, working with the private sector, with the organisation that the Deputy is au fait with, and I have great confidence in the work they're doing, and I can reassure members that the government will be a responsible partner and will support the private sector to introduce the pay gap reporting that we need, sir. It's impossible to put an accurate timeline on it, but I will say we want to do this as soon as possible and as soon as practicable, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, so thank you. And I believe the commitment from the government in the last discussion was to deliver a voluntary reporting framework, which of course is needed ahead of the businesses being able to actually do some voluntary reporting. And this is what I was asking for a timeline to help those businesses. But could the Chief Minister as well confirm how many businesses does he feel should be consulted as part of the gender pay gap review? And does he think this consultation needs to include senior management of businesses to engage?
Chief Minister.
I think the engagement consultation needs to be as encompassing as possible to make sure we are consulting with a really good representative sample of businesses of all sizes. But specifically in the first instance, I think it's going to be easier to get a universal reporting from the larger businesses. The challenges come when we move down to the small to medium-sized businesses.
Deputy Brenoff.
So can I ask the Chief Minister, he described quite a few work streams and so on. When was the last time equity, diversity, equity and inclusion was discussed in the Council of Ministers?
Chief Minister.
I can't actually remember, sir, but it is discussed, sir, and Deputy Hales is leading on the matter, sir, and I believe she has had a number of meetings in her capacity with that political lead, but I can't give any specific, I can't remember off the top of my head any specifics other than reiterating it is one of the government's goals to make progress with this subject.
Supplementary?
Can I just clarify, the Chief Minister can't remember the particular discussions or how many, but can he clarify that it has definitely been discussed at the Council of Ministers?
Chief Minister.
Off the top of my head, I can't, so I'm pretty sure it has, but I wouldn't like to mislead the Assembly. I'd have to check back in minutes and agenda items. But I just want to make it clear, sir, that, and I'm sure I speak for all, if not at least most of my colleagues, this is a subject that we are alive to, sir, which is why it's one of our goals to deliver a greater diversity, equity and inclusion, sir. And it's why we have a policy framework which policy officers adhere to when creating policy.
Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. If I may just go back and ask the Chief Minister with regards to the budget for the International Cultural Centre, would the Chief Minister be in a position to look at the budget if needed to be increased to further support the different cultural groups in the island?
I think, sir, that the government and the Assembly are always prepared to revisit that subject. The budget for 2025, I think, has been agreed, sir, so I think any meaningful increase of that would have to be 2026. We'd have to revisit that during next year once we've seen the progress that is being made. But the short answer is that, so yes, we're prepared to keep all issues under review.
Supplementary? Deputy, yes?
Thank you.
Deputy Tadiak.
Could the Chief Minister confirm that it's a general policy of his and his government that there shouldn't be any discrimination in Jersey on the basis of race and nationality?
Chief Minister.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad to hear that. The Minister will be aware of P 65 2024 that I've got lodged, public elections extension of eligibility criteria, which would seek to remove the discrimination that non-British nationals in Jersey face to be able to stand for election. Whilst I don't necessarily expect the Minister to commit his personal support today on the floor of the Assembly, given his previous votes on the matter, would he ensure that his Council of Ministers is at least given a free vote when it comes to this debate, as I believe it should be, and that he won't try and exert any kind of ministerial whip in that regard?
As colleagues will, I'm sure, testify, I'm not very keen on exercising the chief ministerial whip, sir, and do it very rarely, simply because I believe that we all reach decisions by consensus, and it's been made absolutely clear to ministers where they have strong views or manifesto pledges and promises, sir, they are free to vote as they will. So I think that's one of the reasons why Council of Ministers is working so well together. So yes, I can make that.
Final supplementary, Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And I'm grateful for the Chief Minister for stating all stream works. Would the Chief Minister advise what are three specific, for example, 3 or maybe 2 if has outcomes Assembly can expect before the budget debate end of 2025, that we know that this government, his government, make a difference in the area of diversity and inclusion within a year? 3 specific outcomes that we can expect.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I would expect to see good progress with the gender pay gap reporting, sir, with the private sector. I would expect to see good progress with the work on violence against women and girls being led by the Home Affairs Minister, sir. And I would expect to see some good progress with the redevelopment of the Cultural Centre.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Question 11, Deputy Coles will put to the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Further to oral question 85/2024, will the Minister explain what progress has been made in relation to a law to allow the quashing of criminal convictions for homosexuality? And if no progress has been made, will she explain why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for the question. As I explained in my answer to the earlier question, this is a complex subject. I understand the UK pardon arrangements apply only where the person involved consented to the acts and was over the age of 16. The particular difficulty in Jersey is that the historic offence of sodomy applied to both consenting and non-consenting sexual activity between men, as the old rape offence applied to women only. At this stage, it's simply not possible to establish the facts of each historic offence. Although a review carried out in 2016 could not find any convictions in Jersey of an offence relating to a consensual same-sex act with a person over the age of 16, that would be legal now. Any blanket pardon could therefore apply to convictions for non-consensual acts, which clearly remain an offence today, and would therefore be wholly inappropriate. So with that context, there has been no movement forwards in relation to the legislating for pardon, and unfortunately I'm not sure, sir, that we're going to be able to move forward in that direction. However, what I would like to do, sir, is say this. What I would like to say is that if anyone out that knows someone that has a criminal record resulting in relation to consensual acts, then I would encourage them to reach out either to me or to a charity or someone as their representative within this Assembly. I would like to, sir, address this matter if I can, but unfortunately the data does not help me do so.
Supplementary.
Thank you, sir. Given what the Minister has just said, will she commit to a small portion of the budget for some sort of marketing campaign for the appeal that she has just made clear?
Minister.
I'm not sure I necessarily need a marketing budget, sir, but I am committed to doing that in the media if the deputy thinks that this would help. What I am concerned about, sir, is that persons who may have been maybe subject to this scenario may not wish necessarily to come forward to the police, potentially. So what I ask is that if anybody is aware of somebody, that they look to maybe go to somebody, as I said, a charity or a states member. But I'm happy to commit to actually trying to find a solution to this, because I would like to see it addressed.
Jehan.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister discussed this with this issue with Liberate to garner views from the community to ensure that limited resources and efforts are focused on the urgent needs of the community?
Yes, sir. I met with Liberate on the 8th of May following this question, and they didn't raise any concerns with me. And I think the thing is, sir, is that we may not necessarily know any individuals, but as I said, certainly I've also spoken to one other person who believed that they may know somebody, but that person may subsequently have been deceased. But the data that is held is not conducive with us being able to do something with this. And I'm aware what was mentioned in a previous oral question from Deputy Tadier, saying that somebody shouldn't have to come to us. Unfortunately, even with PNC, to be able to search this type of thing with the different terminology, it is difficult, and systems have changed since the 1990s. So therefore, if you're talking about research in relation to, like, for the PNC, for example, you need to have a nominal, which is a person's name. So this is why I reiterate again that to be able to achieve this, we are going to be able to, or really going to be able to have data in relation to those individuals.
Sir, may I just ask, would the Deputy please clarify what PNC is, please?
Police, or you would do it, yes. But
My apologies, sir, it's the Police National Computer.
yes. Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I'm a bit confused if the Minister is going to do something or if she's not going to do something because there's no data. I'm not sure. So if she could please clarify that, because she's not able to get the data and it's also very difficult, and she's explained that several times, if she is going to do anything, and if she is going to do something, would she be able to do that with Liberate as well to ensure that the community is supported in this matter?
Minister.
Sir, I am happy to do anything to rectify what was a wrong. So therefore, if I'm able to identify a person or people that prior to the legislation changing were convicted of offences in relation to consensual offences in private, then I am happy to do something. As I said, I am limited, sir, and I'm happy to work with Liberate and any other organisation who can help me with this. But at this stage, I'm having difficulty rectifying the situation.
Deputy Joseph.
I don't think I need to declare an interest as probably being the only gay open states member for this term and male one, and in a number of years previously. Would the Minister agree with me that whilst it sounds very time-consuming, and I'm not aware myself of a single individual, although if anybody wants to come to me and talk to me about criminal convictions in the past, would you agree with me that we can't change the past, but we can change the future, and that resources are better deployed by the police and her other departments, actually making sure that today we are the tolerant, open society that accepts people who, it's not about sodomy, It's about just the fact that two individuals of a same sex, in this case male, can be in a loving relationship and be soulmates and be recognised by the law and not discriminated for doing so. Would she agree that actually forward-looking and ensuring problems of today is better use than maybe dealing with a generic and unknown thing of the past?
Minister.
I couldn't agree more in that we do need to ensure that all parts of our community are treated fairly and equally and with respect. And although I would disagree with the Deputy in relation to the fact that I think it's important, if there is something that's happened in the past that we are able to remove for the future, then we should.
Supplementary.
I thank the Minister for her reply, and not all people that are of same-sex are members of Liberate or Active and show about it, but I offer the Minister my help in supporting anybody that has been subject of a criminal conviction, and because it means a lot to me, and I'm more than happy to help a Minister with that, and I hope she'd take that on board.
Deputy Taddeo.
Thanks, sir. So it's a chilling reminder to us in the 21st century that not only was homosexuality, consensual homosexual acts for a long time considered illegal and very stigmatised, but actually that no distinction was made between consensual intercourse between two adults and rape, effectively. But given that's the fact, does the Minister not agree that there should be court transcripts which are available, court transcripts which I believe actually generally should be public anyway, like our own transcripts for this court proceedings are public, but that notwithstanding, that they are available to the Minister, including potentially obiter dicta that are made around the judgments when they are delivered, and that there should have been distinctions made, certainly where non-consensual sodomy occurred, as an aggravating factor in the conviction and potentially in the sentences that were handed out, in order to distinguish between consensual acts of which we nowadays would not want anyone to be convicted versus rape, which on the other hand is of course abhorrent. It is now, and it was abhorrent then. Does the Minister believe that there actually should be a way to distinguish between the two when individuals come forward to say that they've potentially been victims of what would now be considered miscarriages of justice?
Minister.
Sir, in relation to the court record, the answer to that question is that I'm not 100% convinced that that would be available. In relation to any data that would have been held prior to the sort of 1990s, then a lot of the data would have been paper data, which will be archived. And so you're talking of although the easy answer is that if someone is able to come forward, the Police National Computer System would have data prior to 1990. What concerns me is trying to find data on archived systems which potentially won't give you the facts or the full facts of the case in reality. I'm certainly happy to ask the courts the question, but I'm thinking that it is unlikely for them to have the depth of information that we would require to be able to identify whether it was what the full sort of case was and whether or not those individuals were both still living individuals or either one had passed. So I can certainly ask the question, sir, but I'm not totally convinced that that's a possibility.
And so would the Minister consider actually putting an appeal out to the legal sector to ask, in fact, if there would be lawyers in Jersey who would be willing to assist both with the Minister and those who feel that they've been involved in what we might now call a miscarriage of justice, to have their convictions quashed, that they could actually seek private legal advice, because that seems to me to maybe be an alternative to if the Minister isn't able to produce a scheme herself.
Minister.
I'm happy to do that. I just think the solution which is more conducive with being able to achieve something that is more positive in a more realistic time frame is for the individuals who have had the miscarriage of justice to be able to come forward and provide that data and information. I fully accept that in an ideal world, we should have that information, but in reality, prior to 1990, prior to computers, and in fact, during sort of the, if you go over the timescales, if you look, we've changed, I think, 3 or 4 computer systems since the system we've got now in relation to what is recorded by the police. So I think the thing is that if there is a way of us doing that, then I'm happy to ask the question. But as I said, it is simpler for someone to come forward as opposed to us to try and find that somebody.
Final supplementary, Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Minister for her responses to the varying questions this afternoon. Is the Minister aware of any other blanket convictions that may have been issued previously that may cause a problem within the future?
Minister.
That's an interesting question, sir. I really don't know. I have no idea. I think the difficulty is that with this particular offence, and the recording of the data is difficult, and so I think it was an offence at the time, but is no longer. So I think it's very difficult to say in relation to the question that he's asked.
Thank you, Minister. Question 12, Deputy Renniff will put to the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Renniff.
Will the Minister outline whether any decision has been taken or is being considered regarding the continued government support for recycling collection facilities in St Brelard and other similar facilities around the island? And will he explain the rationale for any proposed changes?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, the provision of bring bank recycling sites is still under review, but I must be clear, a final decision has not been made, which I confirmed at my scrutiny hearing last Wednesday. I can also confirm, sir, that our current 3-year contract runs until January 2026. The review is part of the Department's usual budget setting process and is considering the fairness and equity of some parishes having multiple bring bank sites, plus curbside collections, and others having minimal or no provision. A presentation was made to the Committee of Connétable in July, and discussions have continued to take place to understand the individual circumstances of each parish. So we won't be closing any bring back facilities in the first half of 2025 whilst our engagement with the parishes continues, a position I confirmed with the Connétables yesterday evening and have notified to Deputy Tadier following the lodging of P85. So I'm also delighted at the amount of emails from islanders I've received expressing support for the bring back facilities, and I hope that working together we can significantly increase our recycling rate in the next 18 months. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary.
Yes, so one of the things that was mentioned in that scrutiny hearing was the possibility that parishes should pay for those, essentially for those facilities. Does he accept that the problem with asking parishes to pay for these facilities is that they are potentially used by people from outside the parish? And doesn't this mean that the appropriate way to provide them is through the government? And that this would also mean that centrally provided facilities can be provided efficiently without duplication?
Thank you, sir. And that is featured as part of the consultation, sir, that we have people moving from one parish to another for the convenience. Sir, currently we have some 17 sites across the island, not all well located, I'd suggest, and there's definitely the potential for consolidation of sites, sir. And I would also suggest there's the potential for consolidation for green waste as well. Thank you.
Deputy Tadier.
Thanks, sir. Notwithstanding the Minister saying that no decision's been made, there was a publication in our parish magazine, La Baguette, last week, in which the Constable informed parishioners that the Infrastructure Department, which has advised the parish, I'm quoting, that they will discontinue the provision from the 1st of January 2025 as a cost-cutting measure. So can the Minister explain why it is the parish was under that impression that very clearly the facilities would be closed, that the provision would be discontinued, not from when the contract ends, but from the 1st of January 2025. And it's taken a lot, I think, of correspondence from both parishioners, islanders, and politicians for the area to get involved in order to perhaps trigger what appears to be a U-turn on this.
Minister.
So, as I said earlier in my earlier response, we presented to the Committee de Connétable back in July, sir. My Assistant Minister received feedback from constables last Monday at the committee meeting, and our recycling officer has been out and about meeting with each of the parishes. It certainly was our intention, sir, to stop the recycling centres from January, but we've taken on board all of that feedback and the more recent feedback that we've received, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
I think, would the Minister accept that there needs to be some continuity here, in the sense that St Brelard has been billed as the second urban centre for Jersey after St Helier, and whatever we think of that, I think it's probably factually correct that it's certainly an urban hub, and that it's not just used, as Deputy Wren have said, by those who live or pay rates in St Brelard, but actually many people who come to visit or shop in St Brelard Walk at Le Creux, for example, will also bring their recycling to those areas. So does it accept that actually there might be consideration about rationalising where in Jersey the recycling centres should be, but that actually they do provide a valuable supplementary to those parishes which may already have curbside recycling, but certainly to those who don't have it?
Yes, sir. So I can inform members that I've been involved in recycling since 2006, when St John's became the first parish on the island, following an initiative by the former Deputy Andrew Lewis to introduce curbside recycling. So we've learnt a lot in the consultation. We can be more efficient. We've currently got, as I said, 17 sites. People may be surprised to know that St Helier has just one, and St Ballard's has 3, along with St Clement. So we're looking to do what we can, our best. Absolutely, we have to put more effort into recycling, and that is what we're consciously looking to do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Deputy Brenner, final supplementary.
Yes, please. Yes, please, sir. Can the Minister say how much money, given that this was definitely, in answer to Deputy Taylor's question, something that had been proposed to close all the service down, how much money it would have saved, and put that in the context of the total budget, and what was the rationale for that cut?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So we've had to look at what services we continue to do within the infrastructure department, sir, and which services we don't continue to carry out. So we've all had to do that in all of our ministries, as we find increasing costs, sir, and our desire not to put up prices to match those costs. 58% of the infrastructure budget goes on fixed costs and not on staff. So we have seen significant pressure in that area. So I'm happy to write to the Deputy with the exact figure, sir, but it's a significant figure, but it's commercially sensitive because of the contract. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Minister. I'll move to the last question in this section of questions, which Deputy Tadier will put to the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development. Yes, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether he's received confirmation of which entity, specifically either Brittany Ferries or Condor Ferries, Jersey would be entering into a contract with, if Brittany Ferries are the successful bidder in this ferry service tender process?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. As the tender process for the Jersey-only service is live and the successful bidder has not yet been selected, I'm unable to discuss specifics regarding the procurement or individual tenders, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary.
That's a strange answer that I wasn't expecting, although I should have learned to expect the unexpected. When it comes to Jersey's ferry tenders, it seems to me on the one hand we're very clear about who the tenderer is. It's DFDS. I don't think we've got any secrets there. And on the other, it's Brittany Ferries or Condor Ferries. And I'm sure the ministers are aware of the concepts of Schrodinger's cat, but we've got maybe the concept of Schrodinger's catamaran here going on. In the sense that Guernsey seem to be very clear about who they're doing business with. They've said that they're signing a contract with Brittany Ferries. Is it the case that actually Jersey won't know who they're signing with, and it's actually very much dependent on, actually, when it comes to who's going to be running Guernsey service even, is it dependent on who Jersey chooses, whether it will be run by Condor or Brittany Ferries?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I'm not in a position to know who or what Guernsey is or has done in regards to signing anything with anyone else. But perhaps it would have been better for me to phrase it this way, sir. As the tender process for Jersey-only service is live, and a successful bidder has not yet been selected, and in fact, as we are waiting for the submissions to be provided this week, until we receive those submissions, it won't be possible for me to know the answer to the question that the Deputy has posed.
Deputy Breniff.
Can I ask the Minister if he, as part of the tendering document, I can't remember the phrase for that document, but could he state whether clarification around ownership was sought as part of that process?
Minister.
Having an understanding of the financial structure and everything around the finances is a very important part of this tender process, sir. And so understanding how any of the entities are structured, understanding any, what's the word I'm looking for, liabilities around that is very important, sir, and understanding who we will be signing a contract with will be very important as well, sir.
Supplementary?
Yes, can I therefore confirm that in 36 hours, counting down now, that he will know who he's trying to deal with on the French side of this?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Well, actually, because that will be in the process, that will be with officers. So actually, in 36 hours, it's quite possible that I won't know, but that officers or the independent evaluators will know. I will find out subsequent to that, because quite rightly, sir, I am not taking these submissions and doing that work myself. Again, as I said earlier, not this week, but a couple of weeks ago, it is important, or perhaps in scrutiny last week, sir. One of the reasons why tender processes are undertaken by officers is so that political influence is removed from that evaluation process. The political part is then added on at the end, sir.
Deputy Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister tell us who is actually involved in handling the tender process and who will be the agent who will make the recommendation to him?
Sir, I will be receiving a recommendation from the senior reporting officer, but prior to that, it will be the independent evaluator who he engages with to understand their recommendations.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. If the Minister is not likely to accept the recommendation, what plan does he have then?
Sir, I think we are definitely in the realm of hypotheses here, sir. A hypothetical future is not something that I believe I have to answer on in terms of standing orders, and, sir, I will not answer on in that respect.
Thank you, Jehan.
Thank you, sir. Were there any changes to the selection requirements of the tender compared to the joint processes? And if so, what were these changes?
So the principal change is around the fact that we are now asking for bids for Jersey-only service. And so as a result of that, the overall minimum service requirements have changed, sir. And obviously the minimum vessel requirements as well have changed, sir.
Supplementary?
So I'm asking the same questions as I asked the Chief Minister earlier. And so did you, the Minister, have learn any lessons from the failed joint processes? And were these, did they inform these changes to this current process? And if so, what were they?
Sir, I have learned and am in the process of learning many lessons. I think it is too early to go into what those lessons are right now, sir. And but certainly in terms of joint processes, I think there are certainly lessons to be learned. Thank you, sir.
Connétable, St Mary.
Thank you, sir. I apologise if I misunderstood the the Minister's reply to my earlier question, where I think he said that the focus had been on the route from France, Jersey, UK, rather than involving Guernsey. Can I ask the basic question as to whether the extra island stop was involved in the tender process on both counts?
Sorry, sir, the extra island slot.
I think it's Guernsey, I think.
Sorry, just on both sides. I'm just concerned to know whether the tender process involved, from Guernsey's point of view, the fact that the ferry would stop at Jersey on the way to St Malo otherwise, and similarly the other way around.
Sir, Guernsey appear to have made their decision based on what was then a joint process, and that joint Channel Island process certainly included calling into both islands. Obviously, I do not know what Guernsey have signed up to in terms of their agreement with Brittany Ferries. I'm not in a position to know that, and so I can't speak to that. But the question that we are asking in this process is for a Jersey-only service. And as far as inter-island elements are concerned, that will happen after we've made our preferred bidder recommendation.
Supplementary? Yes, please, sir. So, the risk of making an obvious point, does that mean that there is a possibility, if not likelihood, that there'll be no service between the two islands in the future?
Thank you, sir. I think that is highly unlikely, sir, that there would be no inter-island services. I think that is highly unlikely, sir, either way. But it is not something that we need to deal with at this stage. That will come after we've reached that preferred bidder status, sir.
Final supplementary, Deputy Sadier.
So I think in previous statements, the Minister confirmed that there would be no new tenderers in this second round. And so the Minister presumably can confirm that these tenders coming forward were by invitation. And I presume that the Minister invited and wrote to two entities to invite them to tender. Could he simply say whether the company he wrote to asking them to tender was Brittany Ferries or Condor Ferries?
Sir, off the top of my head, I believe it was Brittany Ferries, but I would need to double check in case it wasn't, because those two terms, Brittany Ferries and Condor Ferries, have often in the past month or 2 months been used interchangeably. But I believe it was Brittany Ferries, sir.
Thank you, Minister. That brings that period of questions to an end. We now go to questions without notice. And the first period of questions is allotted to the Minister for Infrastructure. And the first question is from Deputy Rep.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister outline whether any decision has been taken or is being considered? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm on the wrong one. Regarding liquid waste, I do beg your pardon, sir. Regarding liquid waste, do the proposed capacity increases in the drains network for rural areas like St. Peter build in future capacity for potential new housing developments?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, significant investment is planned for liquid waste, sir, to enable predominantly the new homes that were identified in the Bridging Island plan, and St. Peter's is going to be the first part of that work, sir, when we hope to submit a planning application later this year, go out to tender in January next year, where we will be looking to put an attenuation tank in St. Peter's and upgrade the network around that area. So we're also looking to do similar at West Hill and also in Mopor, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary?
So the part of the question wasn't answered, I believe, which was, in fact, the main part, which was whether it included potential for new housing development, not just the affordable housing side.
Minister.
Sorry, my apologies. So yes, there will be additional capacity, sir, within those attenuation tanks, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Jehan.
So can I have my supplementary?
We've got so many members wanting to ask questions, but yes, if you want to.
To what extent has this future development been modelled and estimated? In other words, in plain English, how many new houses have been put in beyond the island plan allocation?
Minister.
So I have to apologise to members, so I don't have the exact figure in front of me, but I'm happy to circulate that later today.
Thank you. Deputy Jehan.
The Minister's told the Environment, Housing Infrastructure Scrutiny that to get Fort Regent ready for construction by February 2026, in 2025 planning permission will be sought for the Fort Regent roof. He also plans indicative works including layout, planning applications, building control designs and I assume planning fees. Could the Minister explain what budget line in the 2025 budget will be paying for all this work if SOJDC is just funding the feasibility study?
Minister.
So the one element that the Deputy didn't talk about, sir, was the funding decision for Fort Regent, which we hope to make by February of next year, sir. But we're very confident with the work that has taken place with the SOJDC, and we look forward to sharing that with members and the public in the very near future.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. So what we're hearing from the Minister is that though he's put in indicative works for 2025 to get construction ready for early 2026. There's no funding available, but the funding needs to be not only found, but also spent in 2025, which means it has to come from the budget 2025. So could the Minister explain a little bit what that means and where he thinks that that will be found? What kind of ideas does he have?
Sir, I clearly don't do a very good job of explaining myself, sir. So SOJDC have been asked to use £3 million, which was left over from the College Garden work, sir, and that is to take us up to the planning application stage, sir, and we hope that will happen very early next year. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. Would the Minister advise progress that has been made with the First Tower playing field for First Tower School?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I don't believe any further progress has been made since I last answered this question to the Deputy. We've been for pre-planning advice, sir, and we've liaising with the current owner of the land, and I don't believe that we've had a decision back from that person. Thank you, sir.
As Minister aware, we have pre-planning advice and engagement with the owner of the field that was allocated for the education purposes and regional island plan for last year and a half. When the Minister will consider that we cannot continue more engagement and we actually need this field for the school to be purchased and build the field?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm aware that there had been previous plans drawn up, sir, but the owner of the land, who currently is the owner of that land, asked us to look at revised plans, which would give them a greater return for that land, sir. And I don't think that's unusual, and we continue dialogue. Hopefully we can come to some form of agreement. I am aware of the importance of providing additional recreational space at First Tower School, and I've spoken to the Deputy about another potential short-term solution. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Moore.
Thank you, sir. I'm grateful to the Minister for continuing the work with the JDC to redevelop Fort Regent, but could the Minister please assure concerned parents that childcare facilities will be retained at the site as the redevelopment work progresses and that it will be included in future redevelopment of the site?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for her question. I'm not sure which childcare element there is. I presume that's the nursery. Sir, the plans that I've seen, sir, include a new nursery provision, sir, and I would like to envisage that the current operation would move from its current location to the new location, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary. Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister commit to publishing before the end of December 2024 a breakdown of the spending that is currently being undertaken on the renovations of the Arbre de Part pools? Can he detail the sums already spent? What is the value of contracts outstanding? And how much of the £500,000 budget remains unspent?
Minister.
Sir, I'm very sorry, sir, but I don't keep those numbers in my head, and in fact they change daily because there's currently work taking place at Arbre de Part pool, sir. Sir, there is, and the Assistant Minister for Infrastructure is the lead on the Arbre de Part. So what I can confirm, sir, is that the gates will be open again this week, the sluice gates, and again they'll have to be open again next month, sir. Thank you.
Sorry, sir, that wasn't answering my question. And my question was about committing to publishing before the end of December a breakdown of the spending that is currently being undertaken.
Minister, the breakdown that's been sought.
Sir, I'm happy when the works are completed, sir, to share with members the breakdown of the costs. Thank you.
Sorry, so can I ask for end of December? What does the Minister mean by he will share them when they're complete? What time frame does he envisage?
So I don't have the site of the contract. I don't know the length of the works. Some of those works are weather dependent, sir. And if it's before the end of December, I'm happy to share them then. If it's after, then I'll share when the works are complete, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Alex Curtis.
Thank you, sir. A recent Freedom of Information response on pavement widening costs highlighted that the cost of public realm works in Lamott Street totalled £1 million and £8,290, although this did include some civil engineering works for drainage. Has the Minister had a chance to consider whether this funding is value for money in the public realm?
Minister.
I thank the Deputy for his question. Sir, I've spoken about Lamott Street several times at the scrutiny panel that I attend, sir, which the Deputy is a member of, and so the Deputy be aware that it wouldn't have been a priority of mine. Having said that, sir, the team have done a fantastic job in Lamott Street, and I do believe that it's a good solution. So we're looking at pavements around the island, sir, and I much prefer to have a 1.2 metre width pavement than no pavement at all. My officers keep telling me that I have to have 1.8 metres, but I'm slowly winning the battle, sir. Thank you.
Point of order, sir.
Point of order?
Yes.
Yes.
Sir, I'm sorry, but I'm a bit of a... the Deputy asked a question in relation to roadworks where he's got a business. And shouldn't a member declare the fact that they've got a business on the road that they're talking about?
Well, under Standing Order 106, a member of the state must declare an interest at the earliest opportunity, clearly stating the nature of the interest. And the interest is recorded in the minutes, so members are required to declare an interest if they have one.
Sir, for the avoidance of doubt, if members really want this, I do own a business on Lamott Street. The cost of public works on Lamott Street were those up to Hillary Street and up to 15 Lamott Street. I own 11 Lamott Street. No public realm works were undertaken outside my business, and I was asking about value for money and not the delivery of service in relation to the improvement of facilities for businesses in the area.
That declaration is noted. Connétable of Trinity.
Sorry, sir, I didn't get a supplementary.
Oh, didn't you? Well, your declaration of interest is quite lengthy. Yes, all right, supplementary.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to hear the Minister is keen on pragmatic solutions to pavement and facilities, highlighting a 1.2 metre is better than nothing. Does he have any other suggestions for pragmatic road improvements across Jersey?
Minister.
So I'm sure that our decision-making can be much quicker, sir, and I'm delighted that in recent weeks St John's has received a zebra crossing. Members may be interested to note it's taken some 20 years for that zebra crossing to arrive, and I'm pleased to say it was agreed and the work was agreed before I became Minister, sir. Thank you.
Connétable Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Could I ask the Minister if he's aware of any plans to relocate the abattoir from its present site at La Collette?
Minister.
So there's no plans currently, as far as I'm aware, to relocate the abattoir from its current site. We do have some challenges with the current abattoir, but I believe significant funds were spent on that not too long ago. Thank you.
Supplementary. Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise us when the sauna and the steam and the children's splash pool will be open again at the Connétable Leisure Centre?
Minister.
So I have to say I'm embarrassed that I wasn't aware that it hadn't already reopened. Only on Friday evening I was with a regular user of Le Connétable who was telling me what a great facility it now was, including the upgraded changing rooms. I am aware that Le Connétable and all of our swimming pools recently won awards, but I have not been told that the sauna and steam hasn't been opened. I understood that works had been done, and I'll get back to the Deputy.
Supplementary.
Yes, thank you. Is there a longer-term plan for the redevelopment of Le Connétable Sports Centre?
Minister.
So the Keneve Sports Centre, like a number of our assets, is getting to a certain age where we have to invest into that facility. No detailed work has been carried out yet. In fact, significant work was done over the summer when the pool was closed for several weeks to upgrade the columns. But we will be looking at all of our sporting facility in 2025 as to a programme of works. Thank you.
Deputy Joseph.
So a really easy one. I know the Minister will say yes. He knows about a problem with a constituent I have in St Saviour, and once I've written to him, will he agree to come and meet on site for my constituent's problem of Wood-de-Beaufort?
Yes, sir. Be delighted to meet with the Deputy and discuss the constituents' challenges. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Renouf.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So with regard to Project Breakwater, which the Chief Minister is in charge of, did he volunteer the Deputy Chief Minister for this work, or did the Deputy Chief Minister volunteer himself?
Yes, sir.
Sir, it's a question that the Deputy would have to ask the Deputy Chief Minister, sir. I'm well aware of Project Breakwater. It's an ongoing piece of policy across government. It's about looking at our long term. It's about investing in our product of Jersey. Sir, there's no decisions made as to what is and what isn't included. There's no decisions made about funding. And until such time, sir, I'm not really able to answer any more questions on that subject. Thank you.
Supplementary? Any more questions for this Minister? Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister update us on whether he's intending to build a vehicle testing centre, and does he have a site for it? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, a new vehicle testing centre is not in the plan for 2025 or 2026. So we continue to look at how DVS operates. So I believe that we could be offering a lot of our services that are currently at La Collette in our new offices in Union Street, making it easier for customers to visit. And we continue to look at how we can be more efficient with our DVS. Thank you, sir.
Supplementary? Deputy Wall.
Thank you, sir. I was hoping this to be my supplementary. On the 12th of November 24, I asked the Minister why the incorrect paint was being applied to the steps of our départ pool. I have to date received no reply from his department. Does the Minister have an answer? And if not, why not?
Minister.
Sir, here we go. Team Max Shore Grip is a safety coating for use inside and outside where a shore foothold is required. For foot or light truck traffic, it can be used on wood, metal, concrete, GRP and other suitably prepared surfaces. I have further information if the Deputy would like. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Wall, if you don't mind, Deputy Wall, I'm going to move to the Connétable of St Mary's, not asked a question so far of this Minister. Yes, Connétable.
Thank you, sir. At the scrutiny hearing last week, the Minister referred to the structure of Jersey Property Holdings. Can he advise the Assembly as to whether he has any particular plans as to such restructure?
Minister.
Thank the Deputy for his questions, sir. And there's a serious matter, Jersey Property Holdings, sir. We have to do better with our assets. So we are making progress. For example, Property Holdings is some 19 years old, and only now are we finalising discussions about agreements with our tenants or some of our tenants. So there's a lot of work to do, sir, and I look forward to working with colleagues across the Assembly, including scrutiny, when I have plans that I can bring forward. Thank you, sir.
Any supplementary, Connétable? Well, Deputy, have you only got 20 seconds? Do you want to ask a question?
Could the Minister confirm whether or not any notice was given on the fuel farm lease?
Minister.
So we're in discussions with the current occupiers of the fuel farm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That brings that period of questions to an end. Now I'll move on to questions for the Minister for Housing. And the first question is from Deputy Jehan.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. In a letter to the Environment, Housing Infrastructure Scrutiny Panel in September regarding the Jersey homelessness strategy, the Minister mentioned actions he's working through with the homelessness cluster. One action was to focus on support for care leavers and those with care experience. Could the Minister advise what actions he is working on to ensure care leavers have access to housing as soon as they leave care?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. We have already in the Housing Gateway the partnership pathway where islanders who have particular needs that might not necessarily sit well in other bandings in the Gateway can receive extra assistance from the Housing Advice Service to help assist those people into homes that are appropriate for them. That service, sir, is being expanded over the years and continue into next year as having more resource put into it and more people working in it who will be able to help people find bespoke solutions to their housing needs when that's appropriate for them.
Supplementary?
Yes, thank you, sir. Could the Minister advise if he thinks it's acceptable that care leavers are housed in homeless providers' accommodation, and will he endeavour to look into why this is happening?
Minister.
No, sir, I don't. I think that as corporate parents, when it comes to those young people who have been in our care, we ought to accept nothing less for them than we would accept for our own children. And that means fighting as we can to make sure that they get placed in homes that are just that, homes, not places that they are put temporarily rather than permanent solutions found for them. And I know that this is an area that the Deputy is passionate about, and I'd be more than happy to have conversations with her about that.
Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. The Minister just alluded to the Housing Advice Service in the answer to his last question. So will the Minister please provide an update on the Government's Housing Advice Service and state whether any plans to make this service more accessible to islanders?
Minister.
Thanks, sir. I just alluded to in a previous answer that this is a service that is being expanded. It's been fantastic to see this become a now part of government provision, where just a few years ago it wasn't. That service is now proactively reaching out into areas outside of government to form partnerships to try to help people find housing solutions for them. They've been working with private sector landlords to partner up with tenants that are looking for homes in that sector who might have additional needs that the Housing Advice Service can help them with and help their landlord too. In terms of the accessibility of that service, I'm very pleased to say that from the 9th of December, when services are relocated into the new Union Street office, islanders will be able to attend that office and be welcomed by someone at the front door and asked to see the Housing Advice Service, and they will have a physical place that they can pop into and have a face-to-face conversation with someone in that service, and I'm very pleased with that development.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm whether the Housing Advice Service has now been fully briefed with a policy around helping people right size?
Minister.
Good question. I'm presuming they will have, because that has, of course, been on my agenda, and I have to be perfectly honest and say I often find the Housing Advice Service one step ahead of me, being proactive in those kind of areas. But they also manage the Housing Gateway, where, of course, right-sizing is right-sizing in both directions is a big need that's represented in that data. So they'll be working with housing providers to try to help people who are both under-occupying and over-occupying find the homes that are right for them, and they're in daily contact with our social housing providers to help people make those moves.
Deputy Renouf.
Thank you, sir. The former St Saviour Hospital site is a Grade 1 listed building that is languishing, and according to the answer to a recent written question, no renovation works are planned. Will the Minister state what actions he is taking to move forward Andium's plans to redevelop the site?
Minister.
Thanks. I'll have a very frustrating answer to for the Deputy for this one, which is that I understand that a cross-ministerial meeting on this is due to take place at some point soon. So I can't preempt that meeting too much, other than to say that I've been to St Saviour's Hospital myself and had a look round with it, and I've had conversations with Andium Homes about prospective options for that site, and it's a very difficult site, speaking frankly, because of the listed nature of that building and restrictions on the land around it. It's difficult to get to a right position from that. But there is a meeting due to take place in the next few weeks with the relevant ministers whose portfolios touch upon this, and I think we'll have more clarity after that.
Supplementary?
Yes, sir. I asked a variation of this question at the previous questions without notice. Does he think that he is giving enough priority to this, given that the answer hasn't moved on since then?
Minister.
The problem, sir, is that when you make everything a priority, nothing is a priority. I've been extremely active in my portfolio areas, and I'm very pleased with the progress that I've made in various different areas. I can fully appreciate the frustration that anyone would feel when we see a physical plot on our island languishing, with government inaction largely to blame for that, and that has been the case for many years for this particular site. I accept that that's something as a government we've not been very good at for many years, and I can simply hope that the meeting we have upcoming with other ministers will hopefully begin to represent a turning point on that, and we can give that site the dignity and future vision that it deserves.
Thank you, sir. Following on the P70 proposition as amended, pets in rented dwellings, how soon will the Minister be sitting down with all stakeholders in developing some useful guidance for landlords and tenants on how the issue of pets in rented dwellings should be managed in a balanced and helpful way? And if not by the end of December 2024, why not?
Well, so why not? Because the proposition said March next year for a start, and that is what was partly in his amendment. But so he used the term useful guidance, which in this context I regard to be an oxymoron. I said that I think that that document will not be regarded or used particularly well, and so in which case I don't particularly want it to distract from the more tangible elements of my ministerial actions that I'm taking, so I'll give it the due attention that it deserves as a decision that's been made by the Assembly, but with regard to the proportionality of the fact that this document will not play much a positive role in helping to take the island forward in resolving our housing crisis. So I will get round to it, and I will get round to it within the deadline that his own amendment proposed.
Supplementary?
Yes, apologies for the deadline change. How soon will the Minister, this is in response to a written question I placed and I've had a response to today, so how soon will the Minister start collecting accurate real-world data from landlords on the level of rents in the residential rental sector that could be used by any future rent control tribunal to adjudicate on a fair market rent? And we'll throw in there December, if not starting December, why not?
Minister.
So that question had nothing to do with his previous question, so you may wish to rule on whether it naturally followed.
Well, it doesn't, but these are questions to ministers without notice. But I assume it wasn't supplementary to the first question, so I disallowed that question. Deputy Ayer.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise how many people have applied for the First Step scheme, and of those, how many have now purchased their first home? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So I can give the breakdown of those who applied. So in the first tranche was 125, in the second was 74, and in the third was 84. That's not breaking down what might have been reapplications within that. If he wants that data, I can endeavour to get that for him. From that first tranche, sir, 18 transactions took place. From the second, 17 took place. And from the third, successful applicants are in the process of being contacted to let them know they've been successful. So we have a little while yet to work out exactly how many transactions take place from that third tranche.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. So does that mean that there are not enough suitable homes available for those people on the scheme, or is there not enough funding for those people who are acquiring a home to get onto the scheme? Thank you, sir.
So it's very much the latter. The point of this scheme, and in my view, one of the beauty of it, is that it's about homes out in the private sector that have already been lived in, of which there is no shortage. And you can go on, is it places.je or places.je, and you can see plenty of homes that would be eligible for purchase through this scheme. The biggest difficulty with it is the funding, and that has meant that people have applied in good faith who have been eligible for it, but have simply been unlucky because of the scale of demand there was for it and weren't successful. That's been the most difficult part of it, but it's very much the funding as opposed to the availability of homes that are eligible.
Yeah, Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Did the Minister disagree with the Council of Ministers who propose that the stamp duty surcharge be reduced from 3% down to 2%?
Minister.
So my position on the stamp duty surcharge is clear. I think it's suitable where it is, and I don't support changing it. However, I'll be supporting the government amendment on this because I would much prefer the Assembly to be having a debate on whether we have it at either 3% or 2% rather than 3% or 0%.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. What impact will the stamp duty surcharge of 2% have on Jersey's housing crisis?
Minister.
So I can't predict that. I don't know what impact it would have. There may be some out there who would welcome a reduction and think that it would make purchasing an investment property more affordable and therefore they'd be more likely to do it. And there may well be people who say that a reduction of only 1% is measly and won't influence their behaviour. We won't know unless the Assembly chooses to do it and see where we go from there. But I couldn't predict what impact it would have.
Deputy Porry.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister explain what changes, if any, he may be considering for the extension of the First Step scheme next year, providing that a budget will allow to do so? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. So if the budget is approved and I get extra funding to do another round of First Step next year, I won't be looking to do it immediately at the start of the year. I would look to hold off for a couple of months, specifically so we can evaluate how the first 3 tranches have gone and decide if any of the parameters need to be changed. I will say, sir, that following the first tranche, where most of the sales that took place were for one-bed flats, we did tweak the criteria a little bit to try to boost the amount of 3-bed homes that were purchased through that scheme, which we did, and we saw that change for the second tranche. If there's to be a 4th tranche or a 2025 edition, I want to look through the data and see that is there a particular type of housing need that we haven't provided for in the scheme so far that perhaps with some tweaks we might better address, or if we can tell if there are particular difficulties that particular household types are facing and see if we could better target it. But that might take a couple of months to go through the data to do that.
Supplementary?
To this instance, thank you.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. Following the Sanctuary Trust Sleep Out event on Friday, could the Minister explain what he's doing to reduce homelessness on the island?
Minister.
Thank the Deputy for that question. I think I've just about recovered from the Sanctuary Trust Sleep Out. But a special shout out, of course, has to be made to the Constable of Trinity, who also took part, or wait for it, and was the biggest individual fundraiser for the event. And I know some States members donated, so it definitely deserves high commendation for that. So when I took office earlier this year, the Chief Minister and I very quickly worked with Sanctuary Trust to try to assist them with funding to help them get through this year, and I'm very pleased at the impact that has had. That has also, I gather from conversations I had on Friday with those who lead that charity, has freed up some of their capacity where they've been able to do more working with government to identify the types of people that are coming to them, what their needs are, what their backgrounds are, so that we now have the richest data on homelessness that we've ever had. We have a good picture for Q2 of this year, and shortly we'll have Q3 too, which enables our Housing Advice Service to better target its services at those who come to them, to understand why they're homeless in the first place and what particular solutions might be best for them. And that work from the Housing Advice Service is fundamental to that. But of course also, sir, fundamental to that as well is the building programme for Andium Homes, who have been providing much more 1- and 2-bed homes in particular that we can use to help provide people with longer term solutions and get them back to independent living. And it's very important that we support their building programme so they can do that.
Thank you, Minister. That brings that period of questions to an end. I'll move on to questions without notice to the Chief Minister. And the first question is from Deputy Breniff.
Thank you, sir. 5 weeks ago, the Chief Minister voted against part of an amendment to the Marine Spatial Plan that would have reserved one small area for scallop divers who fish sustainably. In the light of the Chief Minister's vote, what message does he have for the scallop divers?
Chief Minister.
I'm sorry, so I'm just trying to recall. Could you just repeat the question, please? I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's good buying for time. The vote was on the Marine Spatial Plan. It was for an amendment that would have reserved one area for the marine park for the scallop divers. It was one of a batch of amendments, all of which the Council of Ministers voted against.
I'm trying to remember if that particular vote was carried or not, so perhaps the deputy could help me. I'm sorry, I can't.
It was carried, unfortunately.
It was carried.
The vote was, sorry, the amendment was defeated.
It was rejected.
So. I'm just trying, I can't remember
phoning a
whether
friend,
the
Chief
scallop
Minister?
divers are still able to dive for scallops or not. Could you just
Yes, do you want
remind
to
me
give a bit more context to the Chief Minister?
So the scallop divers were asking for a small area around the ecrios to be reserved for their use, in other words, to be included in the marine park, in the marine protected areas. The amendment was to attempt to protect that area for them. It failed. I'm asking the Minister what he has to say to the scallop divers, given that he did not support them in their attempt to have one area reserved.
Sorry, so I can't recall all the separate zones and how we voted on them. What I do remember is I thought the Minister for the Environment brought a sensible compromise to the position. So my message is to the scallop divers. I hope there is still area for them to dive for scallops as part of that compromise, and I would urge them to avail to that, sir. I do not like the ongoing dredging of our precious seabed, sir, but again, with the view to reaching the right position over a number of years, I was pleased to support the compromise that the Environment Minister built, sir, because it is moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Supplementary?
So the Chief Minister refers to it as a compromise, but it isn't a compromise from the point of view of the scallop divers. It's the only thing they asked for. Is he proud of that vote?
Sorry, so I'm having difficulty hearing. I'm not buying for time. You can put an extra 5 minutes on.
Are you proud of your vote in the scallop diving debate, was the question.
Well, I'm not sure proud is the right word, sir. I voted. I'm content and comfortable with my vote, sir, because I gave the matter due consideration and voted accordingly.
Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. Given the recent announcement of an extension of the CEO's contract of 2 years, can the Chief Minister confirm what KPIs were used and how they'll be measured in order to ensure the CEO is meeting the government's expectations?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, the Chief Executive provides a list of quarterly priorities, which I work through with him as Chief Minister, sir. That is shared and that is monitored accordingly. Thank you.
Supplementary?
Can the Chief Minister confirm that there are no long-term KPIs that the CEO will be working for, or is it just quarter by quarter?
Chief Minister.
Well, they're updated quarterly, sir. Some of those move off the list relatively quickly. Some are carried forward, sir. But I'm happy to share that information with the deputy or any member who would like to see it, sir. As far as I can know, sir, it's a matter of available publicly.
Deputy Jehan.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister said in answer to Deputy Renouf's question that the CEO was not part of the procurement process of the ferry tender in the failed joint process or in the current tender process. Why was the CEO not involved?
Chief Minister.
So the Chief Executive of the States was formerly employed by one of the lenders to Condor ferries. And whilst his employment has ended and he no longer would have a direct or pecuniary interest in that, sir, it was just deemed more appropriate that the Chief Executive stayed out at this stage, sir, and that was agreed by ministers and officers as a sensible course of action.
Supplementary?
Thank you, sir. So can the Chief Minister confirm that if the Chief Executive does not have a conflict of interest in the area, in any area where large procurement processes are discussed for the island, it would be the norm for the Chief Executive to be part of that process?
Under normal circumstances, so yes, the Chief Executive would be part of that practice, sir. But like I said, under the circumstances, it was deemed sensible, without going into the personal or financial implications that the Chief Executive might have after leaving his previous role, sir. It was deemed sensible that he stayed out, sir. Thank you.
Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. And I would like to ask Chief Minister, in his capacity as the chair of the States Employment Board, would the Chief Minister advise what progress, if any, has been made with updating terms and conditions for the teaching assistants?
I'm not sure, sir, off the top of my head, but I certainly endeavour to find out and come back to the Deputy. Thank you.
So was the Chief Minister advice of States Employment Board discussed during the 2024 terms and conditions for the teaching assistants, and where does it stand?
I don't recall that we have, sir, but I'll find out. Deputy Ferry, sir, acts as Vice Chair, so I'll confer with him, but I can't remember, sir, that matter appearing on the agenda.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has talked to us about the CEO, and also we have had notice today that his contract has been extended. Will the Chief Minister confirm whether the CEO is actually continues to be the interim CEO, or is he now the permanent CEO, given that he'll be staying until December 2026?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, he's no longer an interim CEO, sir. He is now a permanent CEO on a 2-year contract starting from the 1st of January. Thank you.
Deputy Miles.
Thank you, sir. So are there any changes to his terms and conditions, and will he be getting paid more?
Thank you, sir. The terms and conditions are broadly the same, sir, but adapted accordingly to reflect his status and longer contract, sir. The salary of the Chief Executive was set at a level of £250,000, and it's been at that rate since 2018. And under the new contract, sir, the Chief Executive's new salary will be £276,000.
Deputy Taddeo.
Sir, would the Chief Minister consider the forthcoming budget as proposed by his government to be an austerity budget or a growth budget?
Chief Minister.
Very much, sir. I believe it's a budget that accounts for the short, medium and long-term requirements of islanders. The short-term, sir, because we have pressing matters to address in relation to the cost of living and the provision of additional services as set out in the corporate strategic policy. The medium to long-term, sir, are largely based around reprioritisation of activities to align to stem the previous growth, exponential growth in the cost of running the public sector, sir, and of course the budget, as members will know, sir, commits to significantly increasing provision for the strategic reserve, sir, by some £300 million. Thank you.
Supplementary.
So another way I've heard this budget described by colleagues and members of the public is that it is robbing Peter to pay Paul. If you excuse the male-specific pronouns in there. But the concern I think that many have is that the medium and long-term well-being of Peter is by no means guaranteed. Can the Minister speak to this phenomenon that actually some of the cuts he is imposing here which might be absorbable in the short term, that we've heard his ministers talking about. On the one hand, the Financial Services Minister, the Economic Development Minister, saying that they didn't really want to impose these cuts. They wouldn't have done if they didn't have to. Can he guarantee that they won't have a negative effect on the economy and on growth in both the medium and longer term in Jersey?
Chief Minister.
I don't think any minister wants to impose cuts or make savings, and that's one of the reasons why we find ourselves in this position, because for far too long we have not checked that, sir, and we have allowed the cost of running the public sector to grow too much to a point where it is unsustainable. This is a budget for growth, sir, because it still sees about 5% growth in the overall expenditure, sir. And that is a lot less if we hadn't checked that, sir, with inflation running at high levels, significantly higher than the RPI, sir, in areas such as health, for example. Had we not checked that and reprioritised, we would have seen a budget that was probably 50 to 100 million pounds more than we've budgeted for. So, and I forgot the second part of the question. Thank you.
Thanks. So the second part was really about, can the Minister guarantee that the cuts that are being made, where investment would have otherwise been made, it will not have a medium and long-term impact on economic growth?
Well, sir, we have, of course, carried out the public and commercial and economic sort of risk analyses of these, and the economic advice would indicate that it wouldn't, sir. And there are lots of nice to have things, sir, that we've either delayed or curtailed. In relation to the capital budget, we've made that more realistic, so we're budgeting for what we can actually spend. So no, I don't think we are going to see any long-term negative impacts. I'd like to think the opposite, because whilst scrutiny and some members have been focusing on what we're not doing, I would urge them to focus on the new investments we are making, the things we are doing, sir, such as extending nursery care provision, the provision of school meals, starting to build the new hospital at Overdale, the further investment in health, so the reduction in GP fees, the implementation of the violence against women and girls, transition to a living wage, sir. We are reinvesting, so where we are saving, so we are making reinvestment. So I'd ask members to focus on what we are doing, not what we're not doing, sir. Thank you.
Lady Wilson.
Thank you, sir. Given the previous question on Chief Executive's pay, could the Chief Minister also inform us as to whether or not the Chief Executive's pay will be performance related? And if so, is it likely that the baseline salary of £276,000 will be exceeded?
Chief Minister.
No, sir, the pay, sir, is not performance related. Well, having said that, sir, we would expect a strong performance from the Chief Executive, but it's not performance related, and the pay will therefore not increase.
Supplementary. Connétable Trinity.
Thank you, sir. Does the Chief Minister agree with me that major constitutional change should not be brought before this Assembly without proper consultation with the public, and I mean wider consultation through perhaps a referendum, rather than personal agendas being followed by some members to extinguish 800 years of our island's heritage? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Yes, I do, sir.
Supplementary. Dr. Renouf.
Yes, sir. Could the Chief Minister explain in what way changing the Speaker of this Assembly, President of this Assembly, is a major constitutional change?
Chief Minister.
Well, sir, in the long history of this Assembly and our right as an island of self-determination, for most of that period, through turmoil and through wars and through various challenges, so there's been one constant, and that is the office of bailiff, and that has always worked well for us. I absolutely subscribe to the doctrine of separation of power, sir, but I think that's a conversation and a debate when we talk about that, sir, because we don't have, the United Kingdom doesn't have true separation of powers because the executive and the legislature are one in the same. It's the same here. Giving a jurisdiction of our size, how we operate, so I think the office of bailiff works extremely well for us, and if we are to replace it, we need to replace it with something arguably that's better. With the greatest respect to my good friend the Constable of St John, who I do not criticise in any way for bringing this proposition. It's something that's worthy of debate, sir. I believe what he's presenting will not improve the situation. Thank you.
Well, that answer brings this period of questions to an end. Right, it does. Returning to the order paper, there's nothing under J or K. That brings us to public business, and I believe it's the wish of the Assembly to commence that tomorrow morning. Is the adjournment proposed?
It is.
The members are content to adjourn until tomorrow morning at 9:30. The state's adjourned until tomorrow at 9:30.